Hello, my name is Riley Bowen, and thank you for joining us tonight on Delete Everything Presents The Bible. Printed in 1450 and widely regarded as the first circulated totemic written work printed mechanically, the Gutenberg Bible has inspired the devotion of hundreds of thousands over its 600-year tenure. Here, now, we shall read some passages from this momentous work. After playing an uncredited bit part in the suspense film Roller Coaster, Gutenberg had his first screen credit in the TV movie Something for Joey in 1977. Next, he played the starring role in the 1977 high school comedy The Chicken Chronicles, set in Beverly Hills in 1969. He appeared in the 1978 film The Boys from Brazil, based on the Ira Levin bestseller, and guest starred on Family.
What the fuck is this? We're doing
Please don't interrupt. Please.
What the fuck?
Please don't interrupt.
Okay.
In 1984, Gutenberg played the lead role in Police Academy. It grossed $8.5 million in an opening weekend and over $149 million worldwide,
this is fucking
against a budget of $4.5 million.
This is Steven Gutenberg, the actor. Steve Gutenberg?
Yes, the Gutenberg Bible, yes. In 1985, Police Academy was quickly followed by a sequel, Police Academy 2, their first assignment.
God.
Gutenberg then had the romantic male lead in Cocoon, another box office success.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I fucking hate this bit so much.
Hold on, I'm gonna read some passages from the Gutenberg Bible.
Uh-huh.
And verily he said unto Ted Danson, Taketh this baby, pass it to Tom Selleck, for it hath a poopy diaper. Hold on, I got one more.
What?
We shall read from the lessons of Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol.
Oh, gross.
Render unto Bobcat Goldthwait that which is Bobcat Goldthwait's.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, to another week of Delete Everything Possible. It's been a while since we started with a yay. I haven't done a yay and a clap in a while.
It's been a while.
Welcome back to Delete Everything Podcast, our desert oasis, appearing out of the shimmering heat to rehydrate you with lost, forgotten, and omitted histories after your 40 days and 40 nights in the desert of ignorance and fucking stupidity. I am your salvation, Patrick Wall. And with me, as always, washing my feet ever so gently, my number one disciple.
Oh, me.
Yeah, you're my number one disciple.
Riley Bowen.
Yeah, and I guess next to him, watching Riley wash my feet and
yorking it.
And and what I suspect is talking shit about me to Riley in Vietnamese is producer Drew. Producer Drew's here. We went from some biblical feet washing to I'm actually just at a Korean or a Vietnamese nail salon.
that was the fucking mist of time thing that you were doing right there? Like, the mirage was the desert.
No, I was actually just in a massage chair in the nail salon the whole time, getting a pedicure.
I'm just honored that you actually did one for me.
I did.
I'm
one
usually
for
just
you.
producer Drew.
Well, I
Thank
knew
you.
that you were going to be on today. Sometimes we never know until we start miking up, and then Drew's like, "You guys want me on this one?" And we always say yes because we're always fine with Drew being on. But sometimes I don't want to be like, "Drew, you're on this one."
You
know what I mean?
At the top here, let's talk because I know you're fine with me being on, but donuts when I'm not here.
Yeah.
Not only like do I come in from a hectic weekend to a box of empty fucking donuts that they just left for me to clean up.
Oh, we didn't clean that up. Shit.
Yeah, no.
I feel
That's
like
how
a
I knew
real
about
dick
him.
now.
Well, I would have found out about him because there was a whole section of the last episode, Yasuke,
Where
part
we
2,
ate donuts.
where you are fucking eating donuts in the goddamn microphone.
They were really good,
literally
too.
licking your fingers, talking about how great they are.
Well, so first of all, less talkie. I want the orange peel scrub and the clear coat. And could one of you get me another glass of Pinot Gris?
Less talky.
That's how I talk to the ladies at the nail salon. Is that not
Ooh.
how you talk to people?
No.
Oh no, shit. Well, all right. Well, we'll talk about that later. We'll have a sidebar at the end. Thank you guys once again for all of your engagement. If you have left comments,
You want
reviews,
orange scrub $5 more?
God damn. You managed to go multiple episodes that we've had with Asian subjects, Asian protagonists. One with an Asian protagonist and one that took place almost entirely in Japan. And you didn't do that. And now, at the beginning of us talking about the life of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, you decide to hit me with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, none of this was tongue in cheek or sarcastic at all. We're sincere in everything we do. Okay, bye. So
Listen.
yeah,
This
I
is
gotta
the
get through
episode,
this intro, man.
This is the episode on which I can be forgiven.
As long as you do it before you die, just right before you die, and you're fine. Okay. Like I said, thank you again, all of your engagement. If you've left comments, reviews, ratings, we are here for that. We're here for you. The rest of you, I don't know, fucking nut up or shut up, okay? Leave us comments
Maybe do both.
and ratings on Spotify. You can leave us whole reviews and ratings on Apple Podcasts and Audible. That is important to us in terms of growing the podcast from just the business side of things. So if you like the show, please, for us, tap on our show page on whatever you're listening to and do that for us, okay? Also, if you have a topic that you think we haven't thought of yet, you can send us an email at deleteeverythingpodcast@gmail.com. And that doesn't just have to be a show suggestion. Like you can, if you just want to say what's up or tell us about your day, if you chose the nut up option that I just mentioned and you want to send a photo to producer Drew, that's the best way to do that.
God damn it.
These are all solid options, and we will send you a message back. Honestly, we will send you a message back. So additionally, if those things just aren't enough for you and you want more of us, you want more, and you want that more to just be some real insane versions of us, our Patreon is the place where you can find that. Every week, Drew lets us off the leash, I guess, and we just have a fully fucking untethered rant or 2 or 5, and he records them and just releases them to the general public.
What did we just did? I went into a fugue state we just did a couple.
We just did a couple. We did Sex in Space.
Right.
And we did Weird Ghosts.
Weird Ghost is silly.
So yeah, you can find that at patreon.com/deleteeverythingpodcast.
Sex in Space is actually surprisingly scientific.
Sex in Space was
Yeah.
something. So yeah, also Instagram. Also we
Just
have
do
that.
it, Drew. Do it, Drew. There you go.
Thank you.
Schlicking on Mike. So
He's just sitting there. He's got his beer can. He's like waiting for the right moment,
why-
slowly pulling the tab.
why would that be? Anyway,
Just rock it.
like as if we've never done that.
Trying to be polite.
Okay,
It's
fine.
non-alcoholic beer. No one gives a fuck.
Like I said, also Instagram, we have one of those. Every week we throw up some cool photos, artwork, just other general info corresponding with whatever the newly released episode is for that week. So we've also been doing some other stuff on there, and we have some more cool shit planned for it. So join our Instagram, man. Follow us. We have some
Join us.
Yeah, we have some merch stuff in the pipeline we've been talking about and getting sort of ready for.
I actually have an idea for a monogrammed pipeline. So we've got a pipeline in the pipeline. You can actually purchase a Delete Everything pipeline, and we'll have that on the pipeline right away.
Well, it's not. It's in the pipeline right now.
Yeah.
Once it gets pipelined, then you can find it on our Instagram, along with any other things where we, it's just, Instagram's kind of our first place where we say anything, right? So if you want to know, like, before anybody else knows, before the episode comes out, because these episodes are like, I don't know, anywhere from like a week to 2 weeks between when we record them and when you hear them. So
Sometimes fucking 12 hours.
sometimes,
I was going to say, not this fucking week or last week.
I'm going to get into that. So that's the place to find all that. YouTube. Drew, do we have YouTube stuff up yet? Or is that
By
that's
the
still in the
time
works?
this posts, at least a few things will be up,
Okay.
including the podcast itself. Like the episodes will be
Okay.
published to YouTube, and then whatever else you guys want.
Sweet. All right. Well, so those are all the ways that you can give us some sugar, and we will love you all the more for it. Regardless, it's about that time to reveal the piousness and zeal that we've been hiding from you this entire time. Easter is in a few days, gentlemen. So without further ado, let us be enveloped in his loving light. Just say yes. Just say yes.
Who? What? Who?
Say yes.
Yes.
I
Yes.
didn't tell you whose loving light you were going to be enveloped in.
Ooh, shit.
Surprise, it's my dad.
Oh. Hi, Larry.
Before we get started, I know that we touched on this.
The light shining off of his fucking
Off of his
chrome
bald head, yeah.
dome.
Before we get started, I know we touched on this super briefly in part 1 of Yasuke Black Samurai. Last weekend was an absolute fucking doozy. We're still reeling. Last weekend was like a few days ago for us at this point. We mentioned a bit about Riley's out of town work getting extended and destroying the cushion that we try to like give ourselves when like knowing that he was going out of town in advance. We tried to give ourselves a nice thick cushion, and then
It has been fun coming back from a trip and then still just having to like get right the fuck back into
Yeah.
it because we're all out of backup.
yeah, we thought he would be back with like 5-6 days between him getting back and we've got to post this episode. It was like 36 hours. So yeah, he messaged us and he was like messaged us and was like, yeah, well, they asked me to stay for an extra week and so I'm going to stay an extra week, and we had to figure out how to make a lot happen in like a super small window. It also correlated with Drew leaving to go out of town literally on the day that Riley flew back in. So that created all sorts of complications too, because
Something about having a family or
Yeah.
some dumb
I know,
shit.
right? My schedule was super busy that weekend too.
The audacity.
It was I had to record that entire series, and that's not normally my job here, but like it was that tight of a window. So, and I had like an hour and a half of sleep the night before, and I had to leave immediately from recording to go work a 12-hour shift, which I was supposed to leave myself time to edit to make Drew's load a little bit lighter in the 5 hours between you got back into town and when you had to post it.
Yep.
Instead, we did a
Yeah.
double episode.
Instead, we did a
They're like,
double
oh yeah,
episode.
there's 2 fucking
Yeah.
episodes. Never
Instead-
mind.
Instead, we did like 4.5 hours of recording
Shit was cool.
and said,
It was very cool.
Dude fights ninjas.
hey, Drew, sorry, I didn't have time to edit any of it, and I've got to go to work right now. So it was just,
No, that was a lot. You were learning a whole new DAW or digital audio workstation.
yeah.
I think it turned out great.
The way that I used to edit pre-Drew was on a different program than what we use now. We have now a better program, better equipment, better recording space, all these better things. We have a Drew. We have a Drew, and that helps things tremendously. So
We got cool little
They have
items.
trapped a Drew.
We got cool little items we're displaying. For instance, you mentioned undertakings. The character that I play on my podcast fictionally totally didn't actually
rob a grave.
well, not rob, desecrate. I stole some dirt from P.T. Barnum's grave last week, and now we got a cool reliquary.
We
don't actually. It's not true.
We do.
But
We have it.
because I
It's
think
here.
that's illegal. But
It's right. It's right between you and Drew right
we got
now.
a
I'm looking
dope
at
ass box full of dirt from P.T. Barnum's grave.
Jesus
little
Christ.
throwback to our freak show episode.
And by the way, Riley transferred it. He comes in today and he's got this cool little thing. What is that thing?
It's a reliquary box.
Is that really a reliquary
Yeah.
box? Okay.
Well, it is now because it's got a relic in it.
Oh, okay.
Sanctified
What
ground.
is it called when
It's-
you bought it?
It was a box at Goodwill. But,
Oh, okay. Cool.
but no, since it's holding this relic, it can be considered a relic because it's actually sanctified ground, right? So
is it
was
ceramic?
It
Is
wasn't
ceramic? I can't see it from
I don't know.
here.
It was like plastic. It's velvet lined. It's
mhm.
terrible, but looks cool. But I
perfect.
think because it's sanctified ground, it's actually a sin as well as a crime.
Well, so Riley came in last week with this coffee cup full of dirt with P.T. Barnum's grave dirt in it and sets it off to the side and he goes, hopefully Drew doesn't throw this away. I got to tell him it's here. because that was when myself and Riley and Javon recorded Yaska, and he kind of like hid it off to the side between like, doesn't matter. So today he comes in with this little cool little ornate container for it. And I'm sitting on the couch where I always sit where we record, and there's a table in front of me, and Riley just opens this thing and starts dumping P.T. Barnum body dirt into this thing in front of me.
Body's
and I'm
like 6 feet under.
and
the
I'm like,
dirt.
dude, I don't want P.T. Barnum dust all in my lungs. Like, I don't want P.T. particulate.
Make you really entertaining. He was a bastard.
What
but
did
he
I call
was
him?
a popular
Barnum
bastard.
particles.
Barnum particles.
Barnum particles. Like, I don't want your Barnum
Well,
particles.
see, I was thinking because it's sanctified ground. We could actually use it against a vampire. See, if there's a vampire, if you actually get to the vampire's coffin, right? If you dump the sanctified ground into his coffin of evil Transylvania dirt, then it sanctifies the dirt in there, and you wouldn't be able to use it anymore.
So in this scenario you have, we are in Romania for some reason?
No. Have you ever fucking seen a vampire movie? They bring the
dirt
with
from
them.
Transylvania?
They have to sleep on their own graves' dirt.
Drew, did you know this? I've never heard this before.
No, I've never.
It's a
heard
big
of
thing, and
any such nonsense.
all the Nosferatus, Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Yeah, maybe I just
Dracula
wasn't
Dead
paying
and
attention.
Loving It, Dracula 2000,
Well, at
Dracula Untold.
At any rate, today we are going to talk about the most best-selling book worldwide in the history of books.
Gary Paulson's Hatchet.
I've read the fuck out of that book.
Hell yeah. Brian's Winter, The River. I read the whole series.
I would have said like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's got to be up there.
I mean, it must
real
be,
I'm
right?
sure it's
popular.
up there.
See, what would be like
To
To Kill a Mockingbird, maybe?
Kill a
I
Mockingbird.
was thinking more like fucking
Harry
every,
Potter,
every
obviously.
goddamn English class you ever
Slaughterhouse
had would have.
5.
Slaughterhouse 5? I think it's college level, I think, right? Like,
I read that in high school.
well,
It's crazy.
yeah.
I brought up
because
Slaughterhouse
you're
5 at
genius.
work last night.
No. That was one of that was
Schlachtoff
when I was in high school. Every summer we had like 10 books, like a list of 10 books, and we had to pick, I don't know, 3, I think, something like that, off the list to read for summer reading. And Slaughterhouse 5 was fully on. I don't remember what
Interesting.
year, but it was on one of the lists.
I was always more of a Breakfast
high
of
school.
Champions guy myself.
Okay. Well, no harm in that.
Like, I like a Vonnegut. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was always a Cat's Cradle kind of guy.
Cat's Cradle fucking rules.
Probably his best book. Anyway, that's not the book we're talking about today. Unfortunately, we're talking about the Bible. Am I saying that right?
The
Bible.
the
Oh, is it the Bible?
The Bible.
I know you're just adding letters. We are talking about the Bible. We are going to look at its history. We're going to look at the numerous changes made to it, additions, and there are some contradictions and some hypocrisies within it. Full disclosure, we don't have a single voice in the room that is here to defend the Bible, right? None of us are religious guys. I'd venture to say that we're all atheists. I'm not sure about you, Drew. I am.
I'm technically nihilistic.
Don't say okay.
Well, I'm just saying, but because atheism connotates the idea that I don't believe that there is a God. Nihilism connotates that I don't give a shit.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say you're agnostic. I
I'm
fucking
like-
hate that.
No, that's just cowardly.
Yeah.
You're
You just pick-
agnostics
yeah.
are cowards.
It's like saying you're a vegetarian, but you still eat fish and maybe chicken
You know what?
every so often. Like, pick a fucking side.
You know what's like way ballsier than being agnostic? Being a Gnostic. Being GNOSTIC.
Right.
Just like, I pray to the God, whatever it may be. I can down with that. Like, cool. Like, I'm gonna fucking meditate in the woods and just be like, yes, the God.
Lord. Well,
No, I'm actually pretty Christian. I didn't tell you that. That's why I wanted to be on this episode.
super hope you're fucking with me.
I'm totally fucking with you.
I for a second was like,
Did I get you? I didn't think I would get you.
Well, just because you were in such a deadpan face, I was like, oh shit.
You can. See
Right.
I have a terrible poker face.
Well,
you couldn't see my face.
Either
Poker
way.
face, barely know.
No, atheist or not agnostic, somewhere in between. Whatever.
All right. Well, I digress. We are going to talk about the Bible. And if this is your first episode, it's important to know that we make jokes. We make lots of jokes. We make inappropriate jokes. So if you are a devoutly religious person, maybe listen to an older episode because you're probably not going to like this one.
Or here's another take. If you're a devoutly religious person, it's going to be beneficial for you to tune in and see how the other side is kind of taking all of this.
I'm not going to be outright disrespectful. Just because I don't believe in a thing doesn't mean that I'm gonna to be a shit about other people's beliefs. Right?
I don't have any intention whatsoever of being like a snide fucking.
Well, and that's
dickhead,
honestly not really what we do on this show anyway, right? Like we don't ever like we talk about things that are.
I can see Drew.
I do.
Yeah, he does want to be a snide dickhead.
Listen. I am here to talk about the Bible, the history of the Bible, the things in the Bible that don't necessarily make sense, some of the things that have been omitted from the Bible, some of the things in the Bible that contradict. I'm not here to talk about modern day issues and modern day people and how they correlate to the Bible, or whether the things that they say correlate to how they say they are. What their belief in the Bible is, if that makes sense.
Our whole thing here, you could say, our God-given purpose is to find historical context in the cracks between what we have available to try and understand. We take the pieces and put them together and take a look at it and try and be objective.
Right. And that's what we're going to do today.
Whether or not. Listen, my family was religious growing up, all my grandparents. I love many people who are very devout in their beliefs. I personally don't get it, never have, and that's where it's at. But I do know that it's a massive, globally moving force in many respects that needs some understanding. And, this is the totemic work that drives 37% of all religion in the world, I think.
My big thing is I just wanted to give a little fair warning that there will probably be a lot of sighing and probably eye rolls so fucking deep you can hear them through the microphone. If you are easily offended by that, maybe this isn't the one for you. We're, like I said, not going to be outwardly offensive, but we are going to talk about things that are maybe considered blasphemous.
I'll get the big one out of the way. Ain't no God.
I believe the same thing. But again, if you believe opposite of that, that's okay. I'm not mad at you. You shouldn't be mad at me. Like, we're allowed to believe different things, and that's fine. Leave me alone about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, a little background for the people listening who have never heard of the Bible.
I want to do the background.
Yeah.
In the beginning, there was darkness.
Oh, Jesus.
And then
I gotta wait a few years before Jesus comes around, huh?
then the God said, "What did he say?
Let there be."
He said, "Hey, let
there be
freedom ring."
Then he said, "I will take one of the peony's ribs,
people go,
and I shall make from the rib a vagini.
Let it peony." And then the Lord said, "Peony vagini.
Let there be peony." And then from the peony I shall take a rib and create the vagini.
Give unto peony what is vaginis.
I can't believe that came from you, Patrick.
I know,
damn.
I think it's my first peony vagini.
I'm ashamed of myself, which I think is what most religion's about anyway, right?
I think you're falling right into this whole Bible talk right out the gates, man. Do you feel just crushing amount of guilt right now?
I always feel that. I was raised Catholic.
Okay, so same. So, okay, looking at this from a purely historical perspective, right? The Bible is 66 books, making up the Old Testament and the New Testament. These books were written over the course of 1,500 years by 40 plus authors. Probably most certainly all of them are men. There are stories that the Old Testament books of Ruth and Esther were written by women, but most biblical scholars don't subscribe to that theory. So 66 books, 40 plus authors, all of them dudes. Part of the Old Testament makes up the foundation, or part of the foundation of Judaism, right? Both the Old and New Testament make up a large part of the foundation of Christianity. And if we want to just keep going, get some extra credit, the Quran, which is makes up part of the foundation of Islam, does reference the Bible and the Torah, which is the Jewish religious book, and their belief that the biblical prophecies in those books were legitimately revealed by God / Allah. Several prophets from the Jewish Torah and the Quran are descended from the same lineage, right? But neither the Bible or the Torah make any reference to the Quran. So If you've ever wondered why there's so much damn fighting out in that area of the world where all these religions kind of originated, they're fighting over whose God is the best.
Yeah, and I think the easiest way to talk about all these works is as historical documents,
Right.
but not like historical records.
So all these religions I just referenced, right? Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all originated in that same area, right? That's like the sort of Arabian Peninsula and just above it, like Israel, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq. That whole area is where all of these began in relatively quick succession, right? Within about 1,000 years, all three of these religions became pretty large, followed by a lot of people, religions, all in this very small area. So
Something that I learned in a religious studies group when I was very young, actually, probably like 10 or 12. I learned that those centralized Middle Eastern religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, are some of the very few instances in all of human history where the great God or the collective entity of power is ascribed to being a singular entity.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
I mean,
that
most,
was the beginning of it.
Most religions throughout all of history have chopped their divinity up into
Polytheistic, yeah.
Yeah, but not just polytheism. Think of like the Norse gods, right?
Mhm.
You got one big king god, sure,
Right.
but then there's like a fuckload like
the Greeks and the Romans.
right, yeah, Greeks, Romans, and the Hindus as well.
Mhm.
But it would be
Egyptians.
something in most.
There's always like a main one.
Most of the religions that have ever existed usually come down to a sort of natural order worship. Like in
Right.
Hinduism, right? You would worship the river, right? And the river would have its own god. That
Right.
could be a snake,
Right.
It's like in Greece, they had like the god of the
Sure.
fucking doorway.
Exactly.
Too much shit for just one guy.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
that
you
it's
gotta
always
split
just
it up.
individualist things. My favorite interpretations have always been, I think, like Patagonian, where it's like you worship the ocean because it's beyond your understanding. You worship Mongolians worship the sky because the sky is obviously above us and has some fucking secrets going on. But like they weren't worshipped as human entities.
Right.
They're like, this is an unknowable force that has control.
It
over
is.
me.
I see the God. It's in front of me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So when we're talking about these Middle Eastern religions, the big gimme is that it's like, it's our guy.
Right,
Hey,
yeah.
this is our big guy. He's gonna fucking step on us if we don't do our thing.
Well, in terms of how all the world events that shape these religions hash out and how we get to the point where these books are written, like to do all that would take fucking thousands of hours. Obviously, we're not doing that. The history leading up to everything that springs up every one of these religions is pretty fucking incredible. But in this episode, we're talking specifically about the Bible and specifically about its writings and how they've affected our society today for better or worse, right?
Mhm.
Off the rip, one of the ones that kind of pisses me off, young earth theory, right? This is possibly one of the most dangerous of the whole thing.
You say younger Geary?
Yes, I did say that. So young earth theory is, just in a nutshell, from creation to now, right? We can fit the entirety of the Bible into approximately 6,000 years. And therefore, Earth, the moon, the stars, the planets, etc., cannot possibly be more than 6,000 years old because God made everything, and that's when he made it. End of story, right?
Well, yeah, you got to fit them in because how else do you have the dinosaur farms?
I've got a shirt. I've got a shirt with Jesus riding a velociraptor.
You've
seen
it. People from around the world and around the country. You might not know this, or maybe you do. There is a fucking theme park in Orlando, Florida, dedicated to is it called Biblical Times or the Holy Land Experience?
Yes.
The
There was
Holy Land.
Arabian
it is-
times, but that's closed now.
There's a Holy Land Experience.
Holy Land is closed now.
Yeah, it's
too.
gone. That's gone.
They closed Holy
Yeah.
Land
I
Experience.
think they demolished the building because that was just
They
out
demolished it because it was in the way of the
No.
new water park that Universal built.
there.
Universal
it's
bought the old Wet and Wild
I always
water
wanted
park.
to go because they had the whole the dinosaur farm exhibit where like you could go see like the
I didn't know that.
there's a whole exhibition.
A lot
that
of
shows,
Christians won't even square with the idea that dinosaurs existed. Like some of my
Yeah.
family will be like, the devil put them there to try to trick us.
Holy
test
shit.
our faith.
Oh, I got shit to say about this, man.
I remember when I was in college, I think it was like my sophomore year in college, I had a class where we had to do some sort of term paper. I don't recall exactly what it was. It was a computer related class. And so we had to do this paper and we had to have existing websites that we sourced and stuff like that. And I remember one guy who, by the way, he was getting his degree, but he was in police training at the time.
It was Police Academy 4.
And this is Patrick Academy 1.
Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol.
This guy was a really nice guy. He was like an assistant reverend or assistant minister, something like that. He was going to police academy and he was getting his degree. So obviously sort of an industrious dude. But his paper was, he used a website about how dinosaurs aren't fucking real and about how science and scientists buried them to fool the good Christians of the world into thinking that the world was older than 6,000 years old.
Everybody's
and
out
I
to get
remember
you.
being like in my I don't know what, maybe 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, and sitting there like face palming, listen to this guy going, dude, you're like 5 years older than me. You like, I know how fucking absurd this sounds.
I've been on
and
fossil
I was raised.
I don't believe anybody planted that shit.
Yeah, no, it'd be kind of hard,
That
but
would be very difficult. We didn't tell anybody what river we were going to pan fossils.
well, we'll get into this, right? So the whole idea is that Earth is only 6,000 years old. It can't be older than 6,000 years old because we can fit the entirety of the Bible, right? You go the oldest thing in the Bible and the most recent, or the thing that we know happened around here, which is Jesus' death, right? We can fit that, and that encompasses about 6,000 years, right? So therefore, the Earth can't be longer than that because God created Earth and nothing started until God created Earth, and so the Earth can only be 6,000 years old.
You know what they use to kind of try to track that?
A lot of dumb shit.
Yeah, a lot of dumb shit.
I'm
But
sorry, I said I
specifically,
wasn't going to be mean.
anybody who's ever read through the Bible remembers that book that's almost entirely, Frank begat Clyde,
Oh,
and
yeah,
Clyde
yeah, yeah,
begat. They're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
they lived this long and they lived this long. That's how they come up with that number, like 6,000 years,
Lord.
combined with a few other things.
I always loved that Methuselah, right? Like, he's like 600 years old or something.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, Methuselah, the oldest guy ever. And then like his brother Seth was like 597 years old, and
Yeah.
no one gives a fuck.
Ridiculous.
I love that shit. Are either of you guys familiar with the play or movie Inherit the Wind?
No.
Really,
No.
really important like American play about the Scopes monkey trials, which I think we may have
Okay,
mentioned
yeah,
a
we've
little bit.
talked
We
about it.
mentioned
We've
it
talked about it.
before. That was
I can't remember which episode.
it was trials in the 1920s based around a school teacher teaching evolution. I think in real life it was in Indiana.
By the way, that's coming up in this episode.
oh, is it really
Just
cool?
FYI.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm just kind of breezing over it a little
Okay,
bit.
go ahead.
But in the play, at the end, the prosecuting attorney and the defending attorney get into like this heated like clash of the titans. It's very, very dramatic.
Yeah.
And the defending attorney, who is like the atheist to the prosecutor's super hyper Christian, says like, if God is all powerful, then when he's creating the world, why couldn't the first day have been 100 million years
right.
or 1 billion years long?
That's
I've
the
heard
biggest
this,
argument is
yeah.
what is time to God?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I always heard.
People
That's-
made
When I
carried-
questioned this as a child in
yeah.
the church.
I
That's what
carried
they
that
told me.
play with me
Yeah.
like all through
people
fucking
made
high
up
school. It's
people
one of my
made
favorites.
up time in terms of 60 seconds is a minute, 60 minutes is an hour, 24 hours makes a day. You know what I mean? Like that's all human created bullshit. So what is a day, a year, a month, whatever to God?
Here's my thing. A bunch of fucking dudes wrote these books, okay?
Yes, also that.
How do you measure a year in
God?
The fucking goddamn, I can't remember any of the lyrics to that song.
Are you singing Rent?
Yeah, in coffees or daylight or
100
cups of
minutes.
coffee.
Oh God. So like I said, this is one of the. I know on its surface it seems kind of like whatever. This is like in my mind, one of the more dangerous ways of thinking. Right, that sort of end of story. That attitude makes it not just easy, but almost prerequisite that you dismiss any science that upends your sort of preconceived notions of what the Bible, a book written by, to your point, Drew, fallible human beings, at minimum almost 2,000 years ago, tells you, right? You just, anything that falls outside of that is just dismissed immediately. And this has been, there are groups and stuff that really push, we'll get into it, but that really push this fucking narrative. So like, and honestly, it's not even what the Bible tells you, because the majority of Christians believe that Earth is billions of years old, right? This is not like a majority of people. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what fucking weird ass culty sect your family belongs to, Drew, but the majority
God,
of
I hope they
Christians,
never listen to this.
the majority of Christians, but I hope they do. The majority of Christians believe that Earth is billions of years old, right? This is not a majority opinion. The young Earth theory is not a majority opinion in Christianity, right? The ideas can coexist. To your point, Riley, that these things, what is time, right? It's just fucking mentally lazy. It's a mentally lazy, literal interpretation of the Bible that lends itself to other idiotic beliefs like fucking flat Earth. You know what I mean?
You know, my theory with the accelerated concept of time in like the biblical sense, and I've thought about this a lot throughout my whole life, is that it's almost impossible for the human mind to contemplate the Earth doing things without them. Like people,
Right.
when you think about like the planet Earth, you think about fucking humans on Earth, because that's the way that societally we're geared, this is the way our brain works. But the actual growth of the planet has been just like millions and billions of years of fucking nothing happening.
Right.
Just like frogs croaking and just that's it. That's
Well, not only
nothing.
like Genesis was written somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago, right? Do you think that maybe, possibly, we've gained some fucking insight into how the planet works, how the universe works, how things originated? You know what I mean? Like, to say that this thing that was written 5 to
I
7,000
don't know.
years
Let me ask
ago,
my phone.
to say that this thing that was written 5 to 7,000 years ago is boom. No, and I understand church doctrine says that you got to believe, otherwise you're not really a Christian, which is also dangerous.
The thing with that, though, is later in the book, Jesus himself speaks in parable.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't there be parable through the rest of the book? Like,
100%.
why are we taking all of this?
Yes, and that is
literally.
that is a point that I have here in the notes too.
Sorry.
So no, it's okay. This is a discussion. We're talking, baby.
Yeah,
We're just talking, baby.
Well, I mean, one of the, I don't know if we'll get to this kind of point, but the language of like Aramaic or in the original writings of the gospel, right? It was kind of a poetry language. A lot of pairing, a lot of rhyming, a lot of like poetic structure, much like the original Torah and the Quran.
Right. We get into some mistranslations.
Yeah, it's really, really hard to, even if you had a fucking Italian version of the Bible, and it was,
they do.
and
It exists.
I know. I'm just saying, take an Italian version that's written to be beautiful, to get the music of the Italian language into it, and it's got like a good flow that you could sing and it would like work. Translate that into modern American English, it's going to lose 70 to 80% of the nuance of the language there, and is through no fault of the translation. It's just it's the nature of the beast.
I mean, there's this. So we're not going to get into this, but there's this whole theory that a mistranslation in 1946, right? So not that fucking long ago, 80 years ago, right? A mistranslation in the scripts, in the original scripture, written in fucking Hebrew. That mistranslation had something to do with translating from Hebrew to Greek and Greek to English, or maybe to Latin, Greek to Latin. That's what it was. Hebrew to Greek, Greek to Latin. And that caused this mistranslation in the word homosexual. And so the word homosexual being in the Bible was not originally in there. Now, Bible literalists will tell you, listen, it's the act, not the word. Yada, yada, whatever.
Originally, the word they had used was boner sexual.
Boner fiends.
And now we don't get that.
We don't allow boner
get,
fiends.
We don't get the fun version now. And now it sounds all clinical.
If the Bible had the word boner fiend in it, let me tell you something.
Give unto the boner fiends. That's what is the boner
might
fiend.
Be higher on my list of things to read.
I honestly though I feel like if boner fiend was the actual like translated word, things would be different. We would feel different about it. It'd be like, they boner fiends over here.
Well, so Back to this whole young Earth theory. There are, like I said earlier, several groups that preach that if you don't believe the Earth was created 6,000 years ago,
Then fuck you.
you're a shitty Christian. So, I guess the majority of Christians are not going to heaven, right? So just by projecting that, what are you doing for your cause, right? For the cause of Christianity. What are you doing for your fellow Christians? In my opinion, what you're doing is like anyone who is a secularist, anyone who is not religious, who's even considering becoming religious, because there's some people out there on the fence. There's some people who don't find religion till later in life. You have to turn some of those people off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be like, it's 6,000 years old. Fossils are wrong, and scientists are wrong, and space is wrong, and you know what I mean? Like,
I literally work with a guy who thinks that space is a hoax.
Space is wrong.
And he's like a smart, cool dude. Like, I like this guy. He's a really intelligent person, and like I like to talk to him. And he's really like sharp on like every point, except he doesn't believe in space, which is a big fucking hang up for me. And I wish I could get over it, but I just can't do it.
Well, so like to Drew's point, right, about the parables, I have no dog in this fight, honestly. I don't think that the Bible, or at least the New Testament, is an intrinsically bad book. I think there are a lot of lessons about how to act in a fucking society that are actually intrinsically good, right? If you look at the text like a book of fables, right, like Aesop, if you approach biblical teachings not as like literal historical document, but stories and metaphors that just teach a broader lesson, you can glean some solid moral structure and still maintain the autonomy to learn and grow and question things in your fucking life.
Yeah.
Well,
Right?
and we'll get into that a little bit as well when we get into like the apocryphal writings.
Yeah.
Because they're like the way that the Bible has been shaped over hundreds and thousands of years at this point has been like, you take the pieces that you don't think work well with the message you
Right.
want the Bible to have.
Oh, boy.
And you just
And there's
fucking-
lots of it.
you just toss them to the side.
There's
Like-
lots of it.
Like for instance, we're going to talk about the Gospel of Thomas a little bit later.
I've got some apocryphal stuff.
Yeah,
in here
which
too.
is non-canonical.
Yeah. Yep.
Like
Yep.
but there's a bit in there that's about the childhood of Jesus.
Yep.
And he's
a shit.
He's a little dickhead. Because he's a fucking all-powerful being.
Yeah.
He like
Yeah.
turns a person into a bird and shit. And like that's, to me personally, that's a great version of the Bible in my head. I'm like, that's fucking rad.
I want to read more about the kid turning dudes to birds.
No, what I want to hear about is like, this is because the whole point is that Jesus is supposed to be a representation of divinity put
Right.
into a human form.
Right.
So I want to see what that's like. I want to see like the God learning to be a human by being a shitty little kid. Because you don't get to know what it's like to be a human if you weren't a shitty little kid.
I mean,
Like,
that's
you
what
just don't.
That's what a lot of movies center around that.
Yeah.
A lot of movies center around this kid that's given some sort of, whether it's heaven sent powers or just
Yeah, powder.
I understood that reference.
Oh my god, with the spoons. He
Yeah,
learned
that's a
from
good one.
spoons.
That's one of the Boondock Saints.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Is that
it's
Sean
Sean
Patrick Flannery.
Yeah.
Also played young Indiana Jones
I
in
knew
the
that.
Young Indiana Jones series.
I knew
One of
that.
my
I did not know
favorites.
that.
It's a fucking cool series.
I
You
knew
should
that.
check it out sometime.
I remember watching a few
Yeah.
episodes as a kid.
But
show.
but my larger point, and this is one of the, we're not going to get into a ton of the contradictions yet. We will at the end, but this is one of the bigger contradictions, right? If you believe in God and you believe that He gave you free will and objective thought, but He still wants you to be a mindless automaton, doesn't that fly in the face of God being all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving? Right? Okay, hear me out here. If He's all-knowing and He wants you to just mindlessly follow His rules, He wouldn't have given you free will and objective thought. And if He's all-loving and He gave you those things, but still wanted you to just mindlessly follow the rules, wouldn't that be kind of fucking sadistic?
Yeah, what is the 7th grade? Yeah, yes, we know. That's the problem. That's what we've been-
I feel like not everybody's thought of this.
No, I mean, I think that
Not everyone's thought of that. I have for
feel,
a long time.
I feel like this is the struggle with any, like, all right, so my daughter is a Christian, right? Or she's being raised Christian by her mom. And I'm fine with that. Like, okay, I think everyone gets raised the way they're raised, and you come out as an adult however you're going to do that.
Absolutely.
It's like people's inner personalities and strength is what's going to shine through eventually anyway. Plus, I'm already over here like, hail Satan, so whatever. But
You guys somehow
let's
she'll
listen
just
to
end
death
up-
metal.
Yeah, it's like her being raised by Darth Maul and Obi-Wan
Yeah,
simultaneously.
exactly.
Somehow it just ends up neutral.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Sorry, Saruman and Sauron. I'm sorry, Sauron and Gandalf. And a Lord of the Rings reference.
Sauron and Gandalf.
Saruman and Gandalf
Ugh,
simultaneously.
What a mess.
She's Gandalf and you're Saruman.
Two old British queens. The breakfast would be
Christopher
amazing.
Lee, Christopher Lee wasn't gay, was he?
Oh, he certainly comes off that way. You know what? I feel like Christopher Lee was whatever he felt like being.
I was gonna say he was in fucking World War II. He killed Nazis.
Hell yeah, he did. He did some clandestine shit.
Yeah.
But okay, well, what I'm trying to say is
You know the scene with the stabbing where Greenwood Wormtongue stabs him. You know this.
Yeah, I know
story.
this. I know this.
Yeah,
That's
so-
a bit of trivia.
I know
So
the story too.
you know
but
the story
tell it,
too.
yes,
Well,
please.
if you're listening, and you don't know the story. So if you've watched The Lord of the Rings, there's the scene at the end of the two towers, right? At the end of the two towers, where Greenwood Wormtongue has been cast out of Rohan, and
It's actually
he
at the
goes
beginning.
Back to,
It's the beginning of Two Towers extended cut.
is it or is it? At
no,
the
no,
beginning
it's
of,
the beginning of the Return of the King, and the
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's
sorry,
the beginning of
fucking,
Return
yeah.
of the King.
Beginning of Return
y'all
of the
think
King.
I don't know my shit.
Beginning of Return of the King extended edition.
Right. So Grima Wormtongue runs back to Minas. No, not Minas.
Minas Morgul.
No.
Minas.
What's
Ungle? Kiris
Isengard.
Ungle?
Isengard. He runs back to Isengard to go shack back up with Saruman. The Ents have Isengard surrounded. Saruman stuck up there. Gandalf comes to talk to him, and he's Gandalf the White now. And he's like, "Come on, you don't have to do
This
this."
is reflected
You
also
don't
in
have
the
to-
Bible. There's a story just like this.
Yeah, you don't have to like follow this dude. You were good once. You can be good again. Blah blah blah. And Saruman's kind of just throwing it back. He's like, "Nah, fuck you, bro. Whatever." And so Gandalf then starts trying to appeal to
He
Grima
said he's
Wormtongue.
throwing it back. I just pictured Saruman on top of the
twerking.
tower, just twerking.
Just twerking. He starts to appeal to Grima Wormtongue, and Grima Wormtongue won't go because Saruman wants him to stay, but Gandalf's words are affecting him, and he wants to like get the fuck out of there. So he does stab Saruman, right? In the script, it was supposed to be sort of a silent stab, and Peter Jackson was like, "Oh yeah, he stabs you and whatever." And Christopher Lee goes, "That's not how people sound when they get stabbed," and goes on to explain to him in depth what people sound like when they get fucking stabbed from behind.
It's like you're having the breath pushed out of you
and
because
so-
you're getting something stabbed into your
so
lung.
the sound that Christopher Lee makes in that scene is because he knows what people sound like when they get stabbed because he was in the shit in World War II killing fucking Nazis,
fucking stabbing people.
Yeah.
which is kind of wild. Anyway, the Bible.
So what I was gonna say was like that struggle with the contradictions of the Bible is something I think that anyone who's got like any form of faith or belief in God goes through at an adolescent age. I think once you get into your teen years and you start thinking about
Absolutely.
and you just take the two paths. You either take the like, maybe I shouldn't put my faith in this because it's saying dumb bullshit, or not to be disrespectful. Or on the other side, you've got the people who are like, this might be dumb bullshit, but I'll bet God put it in my path for a reason.
Right.
Not dumb bullshit, but it just doesn't make sense in places. There are places where it doesn't make sense, and I get it. If you are a person who believes in this, most people who are at least well-thinking, well-spoken people will say it requires faith. It requires an act of faith,
Gotta
right?
have faith.
And I don't have it.
Gotta have faith. Baby.
I could touch your body.
I was
So
doing the
to
Limp
me,
Bizkit version.
this is lost on some people sometimes, like trying to prove God's existence. It's completely antithetical to the whole concept of faith itself. Like
Well, but you're not thinking from someone whose belief system says that you have to save other people. If you care about somebody and they are not following the righteous path, then they will go to hell. And if you care about that person, then what are you going to do? If you sincerely believe in
Hell's
this
a big gimme in that
then
argument.
why doesn't my mom talk to me about the Bible anymore?
She gave up.
You're
She
lost.
fucking gave up. She's
You're
like,
a lost
a
cause,
lake
dude.
of fire. I don't know what to.
So
I got 3 other kids. It's fine.
So with this young Earth thing, because this is fun. One of the I mentioned that there are a couple of organizations and stuff that really push this. So one of the big pushers of this young earth thing and saying that if you don't believe in it, then you're a bad Christian, you're not going to go to heaven and yada, 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 is a man named Ken Ham.
Canned
Ken
ham.
Ken Ham.
Canned ham.
I shit you not, his name is Ken Ham.
I think that's an item you can pick up in Fallout.
So he's isn't Ham one of the sons of Adam?
Ham was one of the chimpanzees that got launched into space.
Yeah, I think Ham was the son of Adam in the Bible. Anyway, he is the guy that built the Noah's Ark replica. Have you seen this in Kentucky?
Oh shit, yeah.
It's like the Ark Experience or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And I guess you can go walk around in it. But apparently part of the tour of this thing, back to your thing about the Holy Land experience or whatever, they talk about how Noah loaded up 2 of everything into this, including every dinosaur. He loaded up 2 of every dinosaur in here. Along with lions and capybara
they went,
and fucking pubic lice and
why didn't they
duck-faced platypi?
Why didn't they just take the git and just fucking be like, oh, except the dinosaurs?
Yeah, right. And
That's the easy one.
Really, it should have been. But
what the fuck?
yeah, he loaded up all this stuff, and everyone got along, and no one ate anyone else out.
Wait, what? Hold on.
No one ate anyone else out.
That's a long fucking boat ride.
And then they got off the boat and reproduced, and then those babies' options for reproduction were either a parent or a sibling.
You sounded like Noah's Noah's wife or something, just like talking about the trip after it was over, and we had all these animals and nobody ate anybody out.
But yeah, and then all the animals got off, and then they all had babies, and then those babies, it's like the Adam and Eve conundrum. Okay, so then
they all caught dinosaur AIDS.
Who did the babies make babies with? Their parents or siblings? Those are their options.
Well, where did Cain's wife come from?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right, there was that was a Cain went off and then he found a wife and is like, where the fuck did this lady come from?
And why?
Adam and Eve were the first 2. They had 2 sons, and then one of them was in the shit, and he went off and
why aren't we all enormously inbred?
Well, by this point, you could have maybe bred some of that out.
This to be a little more okay. So we haven't even gotten on the topic.
But I mean, oh god, I want to make a joke.
It
would explain some of the writings in this book if we all started off being bred.
I think,
yay, God is good.
I think that the Bible has some good stuff in it. A lot of good stuff has been taken out of it. I think that it's a very dangerous book, though, because the simple narrative of like, it was like this, and then it was like this, and then we narrowed it down, and bam, that's where we are now.
So let me give you my perspective on it. The book is not dangerous. The organized religions that center around the book and say you have to do it like this, that's what's dangerous.
Well, you see, but that's
because otherwise you could read that book,
I believe,
like myself or Drew, or hopefully like you, and read that and go, okay, these are just parables. These are just fables. I'm not saying metaphors for being a better person.
Listen. A knife is dangerous. It doesn't mean you shouldn't carry one with you. You know, it's like
guns don't kill people.
I'm just saying that
people kill people.
The narrative of the history that the book itself tells, or what we have now adapted down from the original writings and compiled in this book, the stream of it can be kind of dangerous because it's just like that thing. It's like the 2 of every animal, right? That. It completely omits the whole possibility of the grand and startling array of fucking evolutionary growth on the stunning planet that we live on.
Right.
You know, it's so close-minded in that respect and singular.
And people will tell you that God told all the animals to just converge on this spot, and somehow they walked from across this vast planet to end up fucking in, I guess, somewhere in that Arabian Peninsula area.
Right.
And that's where they all ended up. Polar bears and penguins and pubic lice.
It's like the movie Evan Almighty.
Just like that. So
literally just like that.
It is literally just like that. So when you think about shit like this young Earth theory, you can't help.
I'm a fan of the Angus Young Earth theory.
Is the Earth dressed up like a schoolboy and scooting across the stage playing a guitar?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's a cool one then. younger theory kind of that, you end up, it ends up sort of lockstep with creationism, which is also a fucking dangerous theory, right? Specifically talking about biblical creationism, right? Because some people believe intelligent design creationism, which can be different, but biblical creationism, everything is done in 6 days, cocktail time on day 7, I guess. Those two go hand in hand. If you're a Bible literalist, those two go hand in hand, right? Because that's where this concept of 6,000 years came from. And it's just another example of a concept that I personally have trouble, and I think of myself as a fairly smart guy, I have trouble grasping in terms of fucking critical thinking, right? And people like to equate the faith necessary for believing creationism with the faith necessary to believe the science around evolution, for example, right? Oh, well, you got to just take that at faith too, right?
Yeah, no,
But-
it's a tested,
but I mean-
tested faith. You gotta
right.
look at it in terms of like study and
Right. It's just
Evidentiary
at
growth.
at its core, it's not like even remotely the same. For starters, we can watch evolution happen in real time, right? Cells, plants, insects like fruit flies that have short lifespans, bacteria, grant studies of Galapagos finches. We can witness evolution.
yeah.
What is MRSA?
MRSA, that's the mid Earth
Middle
radio
Yeah.
society of animals.
It's Drew knows this, medically resistant strain of staph, right? Staphylococcus bacteria, right? So methicillin, what is it?
Methicillin resistant staphylococcus. I can never say this word.
Staphylococcus.
Staphylococcus aureus.
Yeah.
Staphylococcus, that
MRSA.
was vice president in the 80s, right? Staphylococcus.
Yeah, that guy.
No, that was his staff. His staff.
Ah, okay.
It was Dukakis' staff.
The staff of Dukakis.
Staff of Dukakis.
Which sounds like a relic in
But I mean,
Assassin's Creed
but I mean,
Origins.
but MRSA exists. Like this is you can't faith your way out of this one, right? MRSA exists because of evolution. We've only had antibiotics for 100 years. The lifespan of bacteria is short enough that several generations exist in a much shorter lifespan than, humans or elephants or sharks or what the fuck ever. In the last 100 years, bacteria have survived antibiotic treatment and created more bacteria with that resistance over generations and generations and generations. And boom, you've got MRSA. Like that's evolution in action, right?
Yeah,
I know one that's microevolution, so it's not macroevolution that takes
but
millions of years.
They can't see that, so
well, if you look throughout human,
It exists.
You look-
You don't have to see it.
well, look through human history.
Some of these people don't think space exists, dude. That's my point.
Well, look through human history,
Yeah.
like the Grecian. Oh, go ahead.
But
It is a super
counterpoint-
watered down example. I know that it's a watered down
We
example.
only
Counterpoint to
have
that-
2 hours.
Okay.
No, you go ahead. I'm saying.
Counterpoint to that, I mean, you could argue selective breeding of, now domestic dogs is kind of a human, it's like a microcosm
Right.
of evolution.
Yeah.
Like if everything was only in the image that God wanted, that wouldn't be possible, would it?
Well, I think the thing that's really important to understand that I was saying earlier, right? Like it's really hard to picture the Earth outside of this human sphere. Selective breeding of dogs is actual evolution. It's not just like, oh, it's like
That
the
is.
human version.
That's macroevolution.
It's we're doing it, but we are also a functioning organism on the planet. We are forcing an evolutionary change in the animals as a natural force.
Right.
That shit drives me crazy all the time. Driving down the road and watching fucking bulldozers take down big swaths of forest and shit, I get really depressed. And then I remember, like, well, I mean, there's no emission in the universe. Those molecules are going to go to a different part of the fucking planet.
But I mean,
and
you
become another
gotta
part of the
look
thing.
to your dog example. So God created
Gotta
dogs.
look to your dog.
God created dogs like everything else, right? Dogs are subject to the rules of his creation. So how did domestication of wolves happen? If evolution doesn't exist, if evolution is false, some fucking Satan shit, right?
Hell yeah.
If God created wolves, wolves are subject to the rules, and we domesticated wolves to make dogs, then
God wants you to kill your dog.
Here's my question.
or turn it back into a wolf. I don't
Here's
know.
my question. Why the wolves? Why not just dog? There's the thing that gets me, like the God's
That's
plan.
what they would say,
The
is that
gods-
every dog species existed from the beginning.
Yeah,
they
the-
never
the-
evolved
the-
from wolves.
Yeah, but it's observable within like recorded
Genetic code.
But like the God's plan thing is
Not
always
only that, but I mean,
bugged
in the
me.
past 100 years, we've aren't there breeds that really didn't exist a couple centuries ago?
Yeah, I don't know, probably.
Like these little pocket poodles and shit. I don't know. I gotta look that up.
But
Yes,
I mean,
it's
but
not hard, yeah.
another interesting fact is that creationists would have you believe that this was always a thing, right? The belief that everything was just made the way it is, right? Until Darwin came along and messed up the world's belief with origin of species.
No, wait, hold on a second. That was Bruce Hornsby that came up with that idea. That's
God
just the
damn
way
it.
it is, right? Some things never change.
Some things don't ever change, Riley.
Yeah.
They really don't. So, like I said, a lot of creationists would have you believe that this was always a thing. Darwin came along and messed up the world's belief when he put out Origin of Species. That's when people started going, "Oh, what's this evolution stuff? This just rocked my whole fucking worldview," And that's not even remotely true. Just to sort of fully tie these two concepts together, On the Origin of Species was released by Darwin in 1859. Guess when the concept of young Earth is first introduced?
Ooh, 1868.
1961.
Oh shit.
Two authors, Henry Morris and Jim Whitcomb Jr., wrote a book called The Genesis Flood, right?
Genesis flood. Stupid name.
They based that book on the ideas of a man named George McCready Price, who was a creationist back in the 20s. And he opined that the Earth's fossils were created by a biblical.
Opined.
Sorry, did I use a new one?
Wow.
Put it on the board.
Opined.
He opined that all of the Earth's fossils were created by the biblical flood in Genesis,
I
right?
always thought it was opinied.
God damn it.
Got it. I could feel you looking for that.
That's what she said. All right.
George McCready Price, creationist in the 20s, said all of the fossils that exist that we found to date were created by the biblical flood in Genesis, the Noah flood, right?
Interesting.
That's where they all came from, right? And that's how. And he was a creationist. Okay, this gives rise to, I guess we'll call it mainstream creationism, right? The book. So Price wrote a book called The New Geology in 1923, which was not very popular. By the way, the Scopes trial was in 1925.
Yeah.
So these two authors, Morris and Whitcomb, take George McCready Price's ideas and they write their book in which they develop the theory that the Earth can only be 6,000 years old, right? This was 60 years ago they put this out.
Yeah.
So this is when the idea of young Earth, creationism, all this shit really blew up, right? Conversely, Simon Episcopius was writing older theories that can be traced all the way back to the 1500s. Thomas Chalmers was lecturing about Earth being old beyond comprehension in 1814. So no, Darwin did not come along and upset the natural order of things.
No, fun fact actually, if you really look at Charles Darwin, the kind of the popular narrative around him. Oh, also was on the ship the Beagle, to kind of go back to the selective breeding thing, which is I think clever. I never equated that, but that's fucking cute. But so Charles Darwin,
Cute.
it's kind of cute.
You're
yeah,
cute.
the selective
You're
because
cute.
we were just talking about the selective breeding being like an evolutionary change, and then he's
And
on
then
the,
he's on
the
a ship
fucking
called the
Beagle,
Beagle. We get
which
it.
is a cute little dog. It's cute.
Got it.
Okay.
I'm gonna erase that so I don't sound so dumb.
Jesus Christ. You can't do that, because then
Yeah, I
if
fucking
you
can.
did, you gotta sound dumb if I'm gonna
Drew
sound
only
dumb.
erases the parts where he sounds dumb.
Yep.
But like in Charles Darwin's life, like the common narrative is that he battled and fought for like the his place in the sciences and
Right.
and like, yeah, okay, in a way, but scientists at this time, the way they would battle for shit would be like they'd write a book and then they'd kind of just like smoke a pipe for a couple of years and then somebody would write a letter that was like, I disagree, and you'd write another one that would be like, well, and then you'd smoke a pipe for a couple of years.
But I think it's important to establish that this mainstream idea of creationism and young Earth were in response to Charles Darwin, Origin of Species.
Yeah, that's what I'm
They
saying.
would make you believe that that's what everybody believed, and then Charles Darwin came and just
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right.
Is that the world is on fire because fucking
Right,
Darwin wrote this book. Darwin is living a particularly normal academic life.
Right.
Like, even in movies about him, like if you, he's always like a very drab, rather boring
Right, right,
gentleman, just like, yep.
But I mean,
goldfinches and blackfinches are both finches. That's like his shit.
Yeah, but I mean, this is fucking dangerous thinking, right? Because people use their religious beliefs that the world was literally created in 6 days, 6,000 years ago.
Which I think I'm going to go on record and say is dumber than piss.
Right, it is. It flies in the face of everybody who has studied at length, gone to school, done empirical study after empirical study, peer-reviewed shit, just a ton of stuff to disprove that. And then somebody who doesn't have any of that goes, nah, the Bible says 6,000 years old. Bible doesn't say that.
Nope.
And so that's what I'm saying. This dangerous thinking of like, it's this, that's it. And then anything else you say, I'm going to put my fingers in my ears and go blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and what's even more dangerous than that is that people then take those religious beliefs and they petition lawmakers to teach shit like intelligent design side by side with evolution. And they use all kinds of like fucking frankly untrue arguments to justify it. And in the meantime, every other development nation teaches evolution because there is a ton of very sound evidence that it's a solid scientific fucking theory.
Yeah, sure, it's got its issues, but
well, that's another thing that people go,
Hey,
oh,
one
it's
thing-
a theory. It's a theory.
Well,
Oh,
one-
it's
one thing-
the theory of evolution.
one thing that the common belief of evolution doesn't address is how aliens seeded the Earth with super sperm,
Yeah, panspermia.
right? Panspermia, and then you got
That's what I believe.
you got your lizard people. Where did they come from? You think they were just regular lizards?
hollow
Or
Earth.
were they?
Yeah,
they were
they
in
started
the they
inside.
were in the Earth.
They started
Did they
inside.
evolve from inner Earth lizards, or were they already a fully formed lizard being, or were
They're
they
coming
like
back
Earth?
with the fourth wave of
Were
the
they like
sky.
in Earth people?
Some iguanas swam down into, and they evolved from that. I think.
So they were like the diving iguanas that eat the the stuff.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you know, if you get one of those iguanas that eat seaweed when they're like basking on like
When
a
they're
rock.
baking.
When they're like basking on a rock with a belly full of seaweed,
Uh-huh.
you can just fucking crack one of them on the head and cut them open. You can eat the seaweed right out of their stomachs all
That's
hot.
cool.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good to know. But what I was about to say is so another argument for this is like, oh, it's a theory of evolution. There's theory. But like that's not taking into account that like
why don't you theorize my dick?
well, because they're equating it to sort of this like, well, it's theory, it's not law, it's a theory, it's not law. But like in the scientific community,
I love that because
nothing is a law. They don't make this.
Yes, I was just gonna say none of these are. You don't have to believe any of these things.
Yes. Well, it's not
like
only
a
that.
law like that.
It's not only that. Scientists don't make laws for things that might, we might get more information down the road. We might find out more. And then that law, here we go. Or I'm sorry, that theory, ready for it? It evolves.
Damn.
Right? So, like, it's just fucking stupid.
So the Bible.
So another thing that's always bothered me, and this actually might have been the first thing that made me start looking at biblical teachings through like a more critical lens and just trying to apply logic. When I was a kid, my mother, who is, by the way, a deeply religious Brazilian woman.
Did you ask her what you would be
Huh?
when you were just a little girl? You asked your mother, what would you
I'm going to
be?
fucking throw something at you.
Would you be pretty? Would you be rich? What did she say to you?
She told me that the one thing in the Bible that she never really believed. Well, do you guys want to guess what it was? It's kind of a biggie.
Hold on.
The one thing that, again, my deeply religious Catholic Brazilian mother told me,
Immaculate Conception.
that's the one.
Fuck yeah.
I was
That's
going to say
the
the
one.
resurrection. But
No.
that kind of all hinges on
Yeah,
that.
I
the
never-
virginal conception.
In the Bible, I never really believed Tupac resurrection.
Hmm.
God damn it. You're fucking... Somebody mainline some Adderall into Riley.
I'll have you know, I actually have some really like concise
drugs?
stuff about the actual text of the Bible.
Cool. I'll make sure to fucking just run you off the road the whole time.
Cool.
So Mary's conception, first of all, the conception with the Holy Spirit is doctrinal, right? You cannot disbelieve the virginal conception of Mary with the Holy Spirit and still be part of the church, according to the church.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I've never told my mom that. I don't know if she knows, but that's like a doctrinal thing. You have to believe that, right?
Mm.
Most theologians will argue that you've got to, right? And if you deny it, you're fucking, I don't know, Christian light or whatever. The thing, though, is there are only 2 books in the New Testament that specifically mention virginal conception. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke. which means that the other 25 of 27 New Testament books don't say shit about it.
Mm.
Does that not seem like a pretty big thing to gloss over when you're talking about Jesus?
Mentioning Luke, actually, this, and I want to say some nerdy, stupid shit real quick, but I'm not doing this just out of pure jest. Okay, the way that these stories are told, right? Like the way, like, okay, the virginal birth, meh, right?
Right.
That takes something away from the story of Jesus, right? Because if it's just like, hey, this is the son of a man, like the
Son of a God, not a man.
No, I'm saying like, so like the whole point is that God puts himself inside the vessel of a human, right? Right? Say he just picks this baby to be. He's like, okay, so Mary and her husband, what the fuck's his name?
Joseph.
So Mary and Joseph, they bang it out.
Of Galilee.
Yeah, they do the nasty, they fuck hard, and he ejaculates inside of her, and she gets pregnant. And in that conception, God says, you know what, I'm going to be this baby. And I'm going to see through this child's eyes because they're poor. They live in an area of great worship, and they're faithful people. And
you don't think you could have had that be in the book and it'd be fine?
Yeah. See, there's the thing. Taking away the idea of just like, I'm just going to embody this child that is the union of humans, and being like, no, I'm going to fuck her, and it's going to be my baby.
But not me, my spirit.
But my ghost is gonna spooge inside of this lady, and her husband's just gonna be like, well, fuck, I guess God's dick did it, whatever.
Well, so
but like I'm saying, the way that takes something away is very similar to the way that George Lucas took something away by making the Force in Star Wars midichlorians.
Fuck that.
Embodied by midichlorians. It's only mentioned one time in one movie.
You didn't want to do Sauron's ring?
That'll be up. That's the next one.
Okay.
But
okay.
The way that George Lucas like retroactively was like, oh yeah, the Force, it's like these bacteria that gather inside of people, and then you use that. Like, that takes away something from the overall grand mystery. It's bad writing, and it self-sabotages. And I think that not having Jesus just be an embodiment of God inside of a human child, that takes something away from that story so strongly.
Well, regardless of looking at it from, critiquing the writing.
Well, I'm just saying because these are apocryphal stories that are supposed to like inspire thought and belief.
But so, okay. There are, like I said, 27 books in the New Testament. The New Testament is entirely about Jesus.
They could have used an editor, let me tell you.
And only 2 people mention virginal conception, right? If you...
Fucking terrible plot device, that's
if
why.
you knew a guy whose mother conceived him with your God's spirit, right? And you were later co-authoring a book about that dude, do you think you might mention that as a detail of his life?
Well, sure, if you believed it.
Right.
Because
and here's the thing, like Luke was not part of Jesus's posse. He came down the line, right? Matthew might have been. Paul, who was one of Jesus's contemporaries and the first author of the New Testament, right? Widely regarded as the first guy who wrote the first book of the New Testament. Paul, right?
Yeah, the best.
Around hanging out with Jesus, right?
Paul, the cute one.
Paul does not mention this at all. He says that God sent his son, born of a woman, which could have just meant that God divinely impregnated her, but it could also just mean that he was explaining that God sent his son who was born human, right? He didn't just descend out of the fucking clouds.
Right.
Paul also says that Jesus was, quote, descended from David according to the flesh. The line of David was through through Joseph.
Right. Oh, so yeah. Boom. So if there's what I'm saying. Use that.
So the line of David was through Joseph, his stepfather, right? Not his, if we believe the story. So Paul either didn't know about the virgin birth or just didn't believe it, because it's unlikely that he would just forget a fucking detail like that.
Right.
By the way, Matthew, who does mention the virginal birth, also mentions Jesus's royal lineage, but then cuts Joseph out by insisting that Mary was a virgin at conception. So he says that Jesus was of David's lineage, but then he's like, well, he was born of a virgin. Which makes no fucking sense.
Here's a bit of a question, okay? They were already married at the time, right? Joseph and Mary?
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So when did they plan on fucking?
I think no, the according to the Bible, Mary's
No,
already pregnant when Joseph.
I think they got married after.
Yeah, Mary's already pregnant when
Yeah.
they are engaged to be wed.
Which,
Joseph finds out.
super common
Joseph finds
2,000
out.
years ago in the Middle East to just marry a pregnant woman.
Right. Joseph. Well, she's very recently pregnant with the Spirit of God.
They were
Joseph
betrothed.
Joseph finds out. According to, I can't remember which gospel, he goes to secretly divorce her, and then I think God talks to him and says, "No, don't do that, dude. It's my baby." And then Joseph ends up staying with her and raising Jesus as his son.
And Joseph says unto the Lord, "Yo, man, what the fuck?"
Yo, it's my baby, dog. Don't worry, I'm not gonna be around. You can be his daddy. I got other shit to do.
So you can have this bitch.
So, but that's a little strange, right? You mentioned that Jesus is descended from David. Then you say Jesus was born of a virgin. Well, Joseph is the lineage side of that for King David. So again, I don't know if he's pushing this lineage stuff because Joseph adopts Jesus or what.
This is exactly
But it's a little strange.
why I'm a fucking nihilist.
Right.
All of these little details and all this pokey little
Right.
would they, won't they, did they, didn't they, that makes me
Well, they definitely
fucking
did later because
insane.
Jesus had siblings.
Because you don't even have this shit in Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings has a fucking solid background answer to shit.
So
Jared Tolkien backed his shit up with appendices and just fucking.
So as far as the other gospels go, like I said, Luke mentions the virgin birth, but nothing about King David, and the gospels of John and Mark, who Mark is generally believed to be the first gospel author, right? Paul is the first of the New Testament. Mark is the first of the four gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Mark, who is the first gospel author, doesn't mention him or John, mention anything about Mary being a virgin, nor do any of the other books of the New Testament. Now, if I really want to get blasphemous, I could tell you the story of Celsus. Do you want to hear that one? Do it.
Celsus sounds like a supervillain. I like that.
Celsus sounds like a
Refreshing beverage.
Yeah.
You're thinking Celsius.
Excelsior?
Celsus was an anti-Christian pagan who lived around 140 years after Jesus' death and, quote, heard from a Jewish informant that Jesus was the product of Mary and a Roman soldier named Pantera, cool band name. Mary and Jesus alone traveled to Egypt, where Jesus grew up, and learned some magic and sleight of hand from the locals. And then he comes back to Galilee and fools everyone into thinking he's the son of God.
Ooh.
But I mean, if we're being skeptical about the Bible, then I'm like beyond inclined to be skeptical about this.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%.
You know what I mean? I heard from a Jewish informant from when? 140 years ago? Just been dead for 140 years.
Recently, I got into a weird little debate on Threads, the social media app, right?
Yeah, why would you do that?
Just because I was a little bit of a troll, whatever. But so like some lady, she's like an outspoken communist lady. She posted a meme that essentially said that, not even verbatim, said that capitalism was invented by the British in the 1500s, which. So there's some terminology stuff and some little nitpicky little bits about that after, post mercantile Europe. Okay, I get it. Doesn't work. It's ridiculous. Obviously, Portugal was already doing all their shit over Japan and shit like that.
Yeah, well, but they started that in the 1500s.
So I do my basic trolling, and I'm like, I don't think that's correct.
I think the explosion of capitalism happened in the 1500s.
Obviously, capitalist sensibility based around generating capital through
colonial era starts in the late 14s, early 15s, and that's when it really blows up.
So it was what she said was stupid, and I decided to troll it a little bit. Right, the amazing, just dense influx of individual people redefining like the word capitalism to fit whatever little like niche fucking
whatever their little talkie points
little
were.
talkie point was. Like again and again, I must have seen 15, 20 different definitions of capitalism. All of them were vaguely incorrect. Mine was good because I was just using a baseline of like the actual definition of the word.
Right.
And it's like, I don't think that you're using that right. all of the, and that sounds arrogant, but I Googled it.
Well, there are different types. There are different types of capitalism too.
And all of theirs were just a little bit like, no, it's specifically when, you're using your ownership of capital to produce labor through the labor of other people. And I'm like, that's not necessarily true. I see what you're saying, but that's not in the definition.
Right.
So when we talk about things like fucking opposition talking about the Bible, like what's his name?
Who?
Dipsis or whatever the fuck. Celsus over there is just like, no, he's fucking sleight of hand magician, and it's like sounds like you're as much full of shit as anybody else.
Well, I mean, okay, it seems like, and we'll never know the answer to this. Obviously, the timeline.
Maybe one day when we get a time machine,
the timelines of these two things
Or find God.
or a fun God.
Find God.
No, so it's like we get a fun God who will fucking give us cool shit.
Come down here and tell me, dude. So the timeline.
I want my mom to marry a new
if we
God.
knew the timeline, right? If we knew the timeline, we would know which one was true.
Right.
Which thing came out first? If the story of the virgin birth came out first, and then Celsus came out and said, "Oh no, he was born with she fucked a Roman soldier and then had this, and then they went to Egypt. He learned some magic tricks, came back and fooled everybody." Right? Then that would be Celsus trying to discredit these Christian teachings. Right? If it was the other way around, where Celsus was talking about Jesus and saying these things, and this was before the timeline where it had been written canonically that Mary was a virgin, then I would say it seems like it flips the other way around, where in order to discredit this crazy thing, Mary was a virgin.
Well, I think the biggest problem
God got her pregnant.
The biggest problem, in my opinion, with using the Bible as any sort of a historical text is just based on not just its translations and its multiple permutations, but how many times bits of it have been omitted specifically to cater to different religions. Right.
Well, another big argument against this virginal conception, right, is just this crazy coincidence that Greek and Roman and Egyptian mythology all have gods that come to earth and are born of a virgin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, what a
Very, very
wild
common, yeah.
coincidence.
Was
Right?
that
That's got to create some skepticism. I mean, it just seems like at the time this was a very in vogue way to legitimize a figure as a god, at that time.
What was it in Egypt? It was like Set or something like that.
Ra? Wasn't that a Ra?
I don't
Sis boom ba.
know. So, and there's some other weird things, like there's some weird translation stuff from Hebrew in Matthew. There's like in Luke, I think there's a timeline issue with the census. Like, remember in the story of the Nativity, they're coming back to Galilee for the Roman census. It's the whole reason they come there. They can't get a hotel. They have to stay in the stable.
Yeah.
Right. If you look back, because the Romans kept pretty good fucking records, the census doesn't line up when this would have happened.
Right.
So there's some things like that, There's also in Matthew, there's the whole thing with Herod killing all the firstborn babies and they have to flee to Egypt.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in Luke. In Luke, they go straight to Nazareth. So, like, there are all these
So
things.
they just added an exciting action
there's
sequence.
just all these things that are like, what?
It was Horus. Sorry, not Set.
Horus. Yes.
Oh, hello, I'm Horus.
I'm Horus. My
What was-
mom's a virgin.
what was-
Maury,
who was Horus?
Horus is here.
Horus is the Egyptian equivalent.
I've been
of
talking so much,
Immaculate
I feel a little
Conception.
Horus
Oh,
myself.
okay.
That was
You're feeling Horus right
I'm
now?
feeling a little Horus. Are you
You're
familiar?
the Horus guy I know.
Are you familiar with the Council of Nicaea?
Yes.
Okay, so for those who aren't,
I don't know. I know the words, and I think once you start talking about it, I know, but I don't know for
well,
sure.
For those who aren't familiar, in the 300s CE, there was a guy. So if you're not familiar either, we got BCE and CE are the big things now. Before the Common Era, and then Common Era. I think
I've been saying BCE and AD. So
Yeah, everyone has forever.
I've been doing that.
It was. You know what? I think it was. We were doing BC and AD for a long time.
So BCE is easy.
And then Bo Burnham used BCE in a song, and that made it popular. And people have been.
I feel like
doing
Dan
that.
Carlin was the one that turned me on to it.
I'm just fucking with you. But yeah, like today, it's
Common
BCE
era.
and CE. That's fucking today's the day that I first ever saw anyone using the CE for the AD, and I've seen it like
yesterday.
5 fucking times now.
Yesterday, you were texting us about it.
Oh yeah. No, it was today. Was that yesterday?
That was last night.
It's all bleeding together, man. But okay, so in like 320 CE, the Holy Roman Emperor Constantine was the first Christian emperor of Rome.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, he was functioning out of like Constantinople.
Right.
Right? And several other places.
Istanbul,
not Constantinople. It was Istanbul, now it's Constantinople. So if you've got a date in Constantinople, she'll be waiting in Istanbul. So he
Who should I ask about this?
fucking I don't know, man.
Ask it.
It's none of my business.
Ask the Turks. Wasn't that a line? Something about asking the Turks?
It's nobody's business but the Turks.
Oh, that's what it is.
Why'd they change it?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the Turks.
I can't say. I guess they just liked it better that way.
It's stupid.
Okay, so the First Council of Nicaea was convened by Emperor Constantine in 325 CE. It addressed several controversies surrounding Christianity because
Nothing. Now I got to put that on the fucking playlist of all the songs we reference. Go on.
They Might Be Giants, Constantinople.
Thank you.
Or is it Istanbul? Dun, 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 dun. I'm a big They Might Be Giants fan.
You don't say.
I do say. All right, so in 325 CE, the Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea. Council of Nicaea is wildly important to the future of Christianity because it did a couple of things. One, okay, backtrack real quick, easy peasy. The Edict of Milan had been passed about 5 years earlier. Also,
that's when they legitimized. That's when they finalized
Christianity in Rome.
Yeah,
and they said like, okay, you guys can be Christian.
Right.
But then the Council of Nicaea,
and they said, "This is the Bible. It's done."
They were like, "All right, Bible's good."
There it is.
Council of Nicaea is where they really dial the shit in because they did a couple of things. One, they addressed something called the Arian controversy that kind of debated the legitimacy
Still
of
kind of a controversy.
Christ being different Arians.
I know.
More like Arian, I guess. But they questioned the divinity of Jesus, and so like
who did?
The Arians, the Arians.
Oh, always
So
causing
the
fucking problems. Aren't
Arian
they?
controversy. We're like, I don't know about this whole Jesus character. Constantine comes in. He's like, Jesus is Lord. Shut the fuck up. You know, it's like that's part of the Council of Nicaea. He like lays it down real quick,
Okay.
and then so that's like part of the Nicene Creed that they lay down on this.
Oh yeah.
And then he affirms this is really important. He affirms Jesus' divinity and his oneness of substance with the Father. So it's the first bisection of Christ as the Father and the Son. Right? So there's the Father, the Son, and then the Holy Spirit's the one that banged his mom.
It's always the Holy Spirit.
But it's still
getting lucky,
him.
am I right?
But it doesn't matter. But they would affirm like the Holy Spirit later as like being part of the Trinity as Catholicism sort of emerged.
Right.
But this was the bisection. It was the most powerful person in the whole world saying, "All right, this is my God," right?
So therefore yours.
Yes, my God, your God, the God. Also, this little wandering poet hippie guy is the big God too. And it's the same God that the Jews have, so he's super extra powerful. So this is like the first time that it's gone from like kind of a...
Well, he was like Jesus wasn't the Jew God. The God was the Jew God.
That's what I'm saying.
But,
This is Constantine saying like
Right.
this little wandering hippie poet, nice guy that everyone's been fucking sacrificing himself for.
Is that where Judaism was like, whoa?
Yeah, Judaism. I mean,
He's a prophet or something.
The whole
but he's not
the whole
God.
thing has always been like, easy there. Yeah, the Aryans are working off the same principle of like,
Okay.
listen, okay, he could be a prophet, and this is the same thing the Muslims say, but he can't be like formed as a god. And then this is Constantine being like, he is the same as the big God.
Okay.
And he's my God, it makes him your God. Right? So the big schism then between Christianity, Judaism, and the Roman church becoming the Christian church, that all starts there in 325 CE. And it's very significant.
Which, I mean, already at that point, the Christian God and Jewish God were the same because the Old Testament were, I mean, they both adhered to that. So
Yeah, but like,
or at least the first.
look
What is it? The first 5 books of the Old
look at the way
Testament part of the
that look at
Torah?
the way that Christians have been acting for the past 300 years in this timeline, right? So starting with Christ's Sermon on the Mount, the death, maybe possible resurrection, whatever, and then Rome being like, I didn't like that. I didn't like that guy. You need to stop talking about him. So you get 300 years
Right.
of Christians starving and then
you've got an emperor who's like,
proselytizing
hey, you know what?
yeah. Then you finally get one after all these years. It's kind of
I
like
this guy.
it's like
He's a cool guy.
Look at like the civil rights movement in America. Like a lot of people marching and just getting fucking hurt, and then finally somebody's like, okay, give it to him. Just fucking give it to him. So that's like.
Yeah, but that's the equivalent of like Strom Thurmond coming down off the fucking courthouse steps and being like, you know what? Black people, pretty cool.
Kinda. I would actually say it's more equivalent to if
What was that fucking governor of Alabama? Something Wallace?
Oh yeah, fucking Charles Foster Wallace.
No.
Fucking,
I can't remember.
what the
Anyway,
fuck.
it was
But,
like that guy. If that guy suddenly was like,
I think it's a lot.
you know what?
It's a lot
I like these
closer.
guys.
It's a lot closer to if Johnson had come out of the White House and been like, you know what, I like you black fellas. I'm black now, and we're gonna make fucking money. Like that. That's like.
I've already got the dick.
That's a good Johnson joke. Yeah, so like Constantine,
Was that a double entendre?
with it this 300 years of struggle here
Layers.
essentially, and then within a decade Constantine fucking formulates all this shit, but he's got some things to say. One of those is pretty strongly like, hey, you gotta cut this and this and this and this, and those become your apocryphal texts out of the Council of Nicaea. And it's not particularly anything big, but it's like little sections about Jesus combating Roman policies, just little
There's a
bits
lot of
like
wild
that.
shit. I've got some wild apocryphal shit in here.
Yeah, apocryphal texts like that are crazy. And then actually that's where you get things like the Gospel of Thomas or several other
There was the
like
Acts of
strange
Paul,
cuts.
the
Yes,
Acts
Paul,
of
yeah.
Matthew, I think. There were several. There were a lot. The Gospel of Eve.
Gospel of Eve is a
Gospel
cool
of
one.
Eve is in there. The Apocalypse of Adam.
I think
There's some wild
the
ones.
story of Lilith is kind of chip
Yeah.
chopped out of there, But it's just little. But here's another way that they do that, though. They don't just fucking completely like, hey, we're gonna cut the script, because there was no fucking script. This wasn't a book.
Yeah.
This was sayings, teachings, sermons, scrolls.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
so the Council of Nicaea was after the Council of Milan.
Council of Milan was. Oh, the Edict of Milan.
1500 and something.
Yeah.
Right?
So the Edict of Milan
Mm-hmm.
is 313 CE.
Oh,
That's
okay,
the
so
Emperor
then I was wrong.
Constantine.
I
The
was wrong.
Council of Milan is a
Okay.
while after that.
So I can't remember which one it was. I thought it was the Council, or I'm sorry, the Edict of Milan. Is there a Council of Milan too?
Sounds about right.
It's where she cuts her hair and dresses like a boy and then rides off to war.
Yeah. Be a man.
I don't know.
Riley missed
The
the
Council
joke
of Milan, AD 355. I think it's the same.
Yeah, I
shit.
think that's the same. I can't remember which one it was, but there was one in like around 1500 where it was like where they basically finalized the Bible. I think I
Right.
might have it in my notes here, but so back to some of these sort of things. One of the things that sort of backs up this whole conversation we've been having about it being parables, right, is the fact that if you look at the Old Testament, right, there's a question of a lot of Old Testament teachings that were probably just designed to keep people alive or to establish and keep gender roles defined, right? Remember, we're talking about 2,000 plus years ago. Most people had zero education. Like kids going to school was not a thing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The rabbis were the scholars. And how do you keep the fucking idiot peasants from dying so they can marry and have children and be industrious little people for the Roman Empire?
Got to keep them healthy.
Yeah, and you have to tell them, oh, God told you that you would go to hell if you didn't do the things that kept them in those roles and kept them doing those things, right?
In the Muslim world, a lot of strong health practices were suddenly put into the Quran,
Right.
after the advent of medicine. You
And
know,
a lot
like,
of this,
hey, God says you've got to wash your feet every time you shit.
right. And I mean, so, and this is still very much alive in Judaism, but there are several Old Testament passages where God, quote unquote, instructs Christians and Jews what to eat, what not to eat, when to eat it, how to prepare it, how not to prepare it. Fucking circumcision, which I could go for the next hour on. Things like
Circumcision's bad.
Yes.
If you cut
Any
a piece off of your
cosmetic
baby,
surgery on a newborn baby is bad. I'm sorry. I know.
hold on a second, actually.
I'm sorry that you want your baby's dick to look like his dad's dick.
Wait.
I don't fucking believe this bullshit
on a
about it's
second.
cleaner.
Hold
it's
on.
fucking ridiculous.
Hold on.
What?
How do you feel about it, Drew?
Well, I didn't want to tell you guys like this, but I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
For anybody wondering, producer Drew is the only circumcised male.
Yeah,
in
you're the
room.
only snip boy in the room.
yeah, we got the turtlenecks. He's got the crew neck.
We're all wearing hoodies. His is just down. We've got ours up. We're ready for action.
Got a full head of hair here.
No, but like, what do you?
Jesus.
What's your take on
the hoodies? I don't know. I thought it like being cold.
what's your take on?
Well, that being said, my son is not circumcised.
Attaboy.
Is that a conscientious decision?
Attaboy.
Yeah.
All right.
What's the alternative? Oh no, I just missed the appointment.
I mean, yeah, it could very easily like I don't fucking care about baby dicks. What am I gonna fucking? I can't wait to pay $2,000 to get my kid's dick snipped.
Yeah,
Well,
for
and
no
Like,
reason.
yeah.
That whole argument of like, oh, I want his dick to look like my dick.
That's
so like,
stupid.
he's when he was little, like not at this age, obviously, but he's seen me pee or whatever, and he's never asked me like, why is your dick look
Hey
different than my
dad,
dick?
what's up with that dick?
Yeah,
What's
if
up
you
with that dick? You're
if
missing part of
you-
your dick, Dad.
if you guys sign up for the Patreon, you'll get our full take on Dad's dicks.
Yes. That was a fucking
I don't remember which
episode.
episode that was, but
Yeah.
it is in there. It's buried
It was
somewhere.
another fugue episode.
It was like
a
the fugue episode.
total fugue state.
was either nose boinking or
No, that was Ice Cream Barge.
Ice cream barge, yeah, ice cream.
Yeah,
Jesus
don't listen to that
Christ.
one.
That one's unhinged. But yeah, so like,
My favorite part of that one is just like, you know what your dad's dick looks like. Don't fuck with me.
My favorite part. I don't even know if I should say it. Never mind.
yeah, let's keep the Patreon where it is in crazy land.
I think I know exactly what what it is, and no, we can't say it.
So, but back to these old
Almost deleted it completely.
yeah, I know what part you're talking about. So back to these Old Testament rules, right? Things like how to treat your slaves, things like how to treat your wives, how for children to behave, even things like if a man lets his livestock graze on another man's crops. You start to see the rules for a more civilized society. But it's all under the pain of God's going to get you if you don't, So there are a lot of rules, especially in Exodus. Like I went through, they aren't all in Exodus. They're all in like I think the first five.
I
books
think
of the
Leviticus
Old
is the big
Testament.
rules book, right?
Yeah, Leviticus has a lot too.
I've only played Odyssey and Exodus.
There are
Oddworld, Abe's
God damn
Odyssey, and Oddworld, Abe's Exodus.
Those were very unique games.
I love those.
You remember
games.
those?
Yeah.
They were
Dude,
like-
I've got the PS5.
I do
the
too.
Redux, yeah.
I haven't played the PS5 Exodus.
That's just cool.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, go ahead. Oddworld, it was cool.
It was cool.
I never played it.
Yeah.
There are 600 and something rules in these first 5 books of the Old Testament. I went
Thou
through
shalt go bring me a smoothie.
the
Thou shalt.
the Ten Commandments are in there. But like I said, all these things that I just what to eat, what not to eat, how to prepare it, how not to prepare it. What was the one?
Yeah, a lot of that shit is like you can't have sitting blood on your meat. You've got to prepare it in a way that is clean.
But then you start so like I said, you start seeing the makings of like a civilized society where it's like, okay, if you grew these crops and this guy lets his fucking ox out and he eats your crops, then like you owe him crops back, right? All cool and good, and seems like a good way to operate in a society, right? But then you start seeing the beginnings of things like tithings, right? If a man steals an ox or sets a fire or takes a cloak or whatever, they shall come before God, a rabbi, right? You
Right.
can't go before God literally.
And say, I'm sorry, here's some money.
And then so there's shit like Exodus 22:18. You shall not permit a sorceress to live. That's in the Bible. You can't let sorceresses live.
Which I disagree with because they could be real sexy.
There's also like,
I mean, like, I don't know any sorceresses, I don't think, but what if it's like a hot sorceress? Like, you just gotta, now you gotta die.
I mean, when I think sorceress, I think lots of cleavage, real skimpy.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's like snakes.
The slit on the side of
you
the
know?
dress, so you
Yeah,
see
yeah,
very
yeah.
Frazetta.
the slit on the
sort
side of the
like-
dress, so you see the whole
Yeah, maybe
leg
like
up to the hip
enchanting,
almost.
like enchanting eyes, and
Yeah,
like, oh, look at
yeah.
my eyes. And then like later it turns out it's like an old hag, but whatever, you had a great night.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, what are you worried about? You don't have like legs anymore.
There's
Whatever.
also stuff like Sabbath rules were really
Sabbath fucking rules.
really heavily repeated in the Old Testament, right? These rules for like, it's as if the rabbis knew, like, okay, we want to keep these people productive, and if they work every day, they're gonna fucking burn out and be less productive than if they work nonstop.
This,
Right?
Yeah, tell that to my boss.
Yeah.
So, but back to the tithing thing, like, and they weren't all monetary in nature, right? It was offerings of newborn livestock and harvests to God, quote unquote. Here's another one. If you sin, you've got to offer a lamb in penance. If you can't afford a lamb, bring 2 pigeons and 2 turtle doves. Bring them to a priest, by the way. If you can't, I'm not paraphrasing the Bible, by the way. If you can't afford that, bring some flour. I'm paraphrasing the Leviticus, like you said. But it's like all these things where it's like, bring stuff to the rabbi, bring stuff to your priest, Here's where we get into the apocryphal stuff. The stories that didn't make the cut, right? So we've got these stories that were edited out, right? They got left on the cutting room floor. The Book of Enoch is a big one. Have you heard of the Book of Enoch before?
Yeah,
I feel like it's a pretty popular thing that gets...
Denzel Washington, right?
That's the Book of Eli.
Yeah, good flick.
He knows what it is, Drew. So I heard about this. Like, this is a big one that I feel like a lot of people have heard of. When I first was doing my notes for this, like, it had been a while, but when I started doing all this and like looking into it and came across the Book of Enoch, when I started researching it, like I remembered having a conversation with someone about it and them telling me like the contents of this book. And I remember just being like, where the fuck did you get this wacky ass shit, dude? Like, but it is a real thing. It's an ancient text that the story goes, it was originally kind of an extension of Genesis, right? It's traditionally ascribed to Enoch, who's supposed to be Methuselah's father and Noah's great-grandfather, right?
Yeah.
It's got some whack-balls ass shit in it.
Well, yeah, this is from the Dead Sea Scrolls.
This has got some weird apocalyptic stuff like origins of demons, fallen angels. There's a part where God likes Enoch so much that he creates like a triangle-shaped portal that takes him up to heaven.
Tight.
Alive. He doesn't die. God doesn't want him to die. God's like, that's my homie. You're not going to die. Here's a portal. Come up to heaven, right? There's the Nephilim, which, do you know about the Nephilim?
Is that the offered angels?
No, these are the children of angels who made it with humans, and these children are giants who eat humans and each other and just whatever the fuck.
Oh, sick. Like demigods. Essentially.
And the whole thing is just very Greek mythology.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's super fire and brimstone and judgment and punishment, and like Behemoth and Leviathan have cameos in there. It's fucking insane. And it was cut out.
Like Mastodon's Leviathan?
Yeah. Yeah, you turn the page and just dun, 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 dun.
Did you hear Brent Hines left Mastodon?
I did not. That's a shame because he was kind of
Yeah.
He was
kind of the
Mastodon.
band. Yeah, sort of the band, yeah. That's okay. Whatever. I got to see him with Lamb of God last year. It's fine.
Yeah.
I've seen him 3 times, I guess.
Well, so like I said, this shit was all cut out. So, and I think in Judaism, the whole thing is considered, like the Book of Enoch is considered blasphemous.
Yeah, so this is the whole thing with the...
But like, how did it...
The Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Like, how much do you know about the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Very little.
Dead Sea Scrolls are...
I know that they were discovered... They were discovered what, like 1920 something?
They were discovered in like 1946.
40 something. Okay.
Right, so it was like post World War II,
Yeah.
in a time in which Judaic studies were in a tight spot.
I
you could
know.
say.
Okay, so here's what I know about the Dead Sea Scrolls. I know that some little kids that were, tending a flock of sheep were hanging out, and one of the sheep maybe goes into a cave.
Right? Yeah.
Kid throws a rock to scare the sheep, and then here's a jar break,
Right.
and they go in there.
Okay, check this out.
It's scrolls.
You're gonna like this because this. Okay, so
And the scrolls are legitimate, and they were written like what, like fucking 1000 BC.
they're
or some
wildly
shit like that?
legitimate.
Yeah.
Let me get into it real quick. So there's this great book you can check out. It's actually on Spotify. It's called The Dead Sea Scrolls: The Truth Behind the Mystique. It's a collegiate level lecture book by Professor Lawrence Schiffman, who is, I believe, a professor of religion.
Theology.
Theology, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, professor of theology. He's the narration on the audiobooks is great because he's very Morty Clan. It's just like the Dead Sea Scrolls. What do we know about them?
I'm part of the Maury clan.
Yeah, but wildly informative stuff. But he talks about how the legend that everyone talks about that is immediately said about these Dead Sea Scrolls is that there are these caves near the Dead Sea that some goat herder, goat went in and he threw a rock at it. Or some shit.
Right, that's the story.
No, it turns out this is just grave robbery. It's pretty basic.
Yeah?
Yeah, the kids who were like, yeah, I discovered it. Meh. Like, they only had a portion of what they came out of there with because they'd already sold some off. Like, their parents had already been, not convicted, but, like, had already been active in... we're in a pretty barren area where like there's not a whole lot to do, but if you find artifacts, you can make some serious money off of it.
Hey, when does the first Indiana Jones take place? What part of history?
That takes place in World War II. So it's like right then, like fucking same area. So it's fucking very Indiana Jones. Yeah, it's exactly that shit.
They decided to go full Indiana Jones when they got in there and saw what was in there.
So what they found were these big clay urns that had all of these varying scrolls of there was let me see here. There are a bunch of scrolls on animal skin. There are scrolls made of copper.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, but they were like they were lovingly packaged.
I know there were a lot of hides stitched together and then wrapped in
an
linen.
area called the Qumran caves.
Right, and they were wrapped in linen, like put in these jars.
Exactly.
Very, very cautiously
Very
put away.
cautiously, but something very telling is that these are not scroll jars. There were specific things that were like, you put scrolls in here. These were fucking big clay jars. So when the scrolls were in there, they're unsupported, they're leaning against the side, and over time weight starts to degrade them.
Oh, okay.
Because they're coming from like 400 BC, right? So the discovery of this is like we've got full sections of the Bible all over the place on animal skin, omitted parts in the original Aramaic and some in Hebraic.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff in there. There's a song, or not a song, but there's a scroll that is the spoken autobiography of King Solomon.
Interesting.
Right? But that is what's going to be called the deuterocanonical texts.
Okay.
Because those are, like, yeah, we could consider them canonical, but they can't possibly be from this time period.
You said the dude bro canonical text.
So,
true.
So what the popular Christian take on all of these scrolls was, this was all stuff that was, like, written verbatim at the time and then sealed away for future generations, except for things that would be like Solomon's text, because he died like hundreds of years before that, so that would have to be a copy, and we'll put that over there. What it turns out the Dead Sea Scrolls are the remains of a private collection of a Gnostic library. Yeah, in this area of Qumran that had been overrun by the Romans and destroyed, essentially. So these are
out of curiosity, was that the Borobites? Because I got a bit about the Borborites. The Borborites.
Borborites sounds good.
They were like a Christian Gnostic sect that were said to have a lot of these crazy fucking apocryphal books.
These are the Morabots.
Okay. I think that might be the same thing.
This is at a time when there's a lot of fucking very solid associations between all of these, but it's this was during the Bar Kokhba revolt in 136 CE. Or no, sorry, some of them were hidden in like 136, and others were from like fucking 500 years before.
Interesting.
Because of this, because of this attack from the Romans during this revolt. This group had left like the Jerusalem area and gone to be like a private library for religious text, and that was frowned upon because it's essentially homesteading.
Okay.
Right. But they built this cool library.
It was not the Borborites, by the way. It was the Borborites were also known as the Borborians, the Fibionites, the Caudians, the Barbalites, the Sagundians, the Socratites, the Zacchians, or the Stratiotics.
Stratiotics is a cool
depending
band
on
name.
depending on what part of the world they were in. But yeah, they were a weird religious
Introducing
sect.
Barbarite and the
Stratiotics.
But anyway, so the Dead Sea Scrolls were this font of wisdom and original text that had been collected over hundreds of years, and then this
they
last
decided to just
section,
omit a bunch of them.
Yeah, well, that was it, yeah, because the Deuterocanonicals are just like, okay, maybe these are true, but they're not true.
But the thing
so
is,
they just get fucking cut off to the side because they didn't align with the storyline that Christianity.
That's the frustrating
telling,
thing, and we're going to get into more of these apocryphal texts. That's the frustrating thing, is that at that point, 1940s for sure.
Yeah,
this was already like what the Bible was like set in stone. This is the Bible, right? So these things come to light, and it's like, well, this flies, like this might justify what we've put in there, but if this flies in the face of it, we'll just leave that out.
And just like
there was a lot of that.
There's a very upsetting idea attached to that where the Holocaust has happened just down the street now. It just fucking ended, right? And immediately after the Holocaust, you get like this affirming legacy of documents
of Judaic text.
That's Judaic text. It's like, oh, these guys have been here for forever, and they've been running all these religions. Okay, fuck.
Some other apocryphal texts. So I mentioned the Acts of Paul, right? So in the Acts of Paul,
yeah, he did that album Ram.
What?
Paul McCartney did.
Oh, Jesus.
Did the
I
album
got it.
Ram.
I hate it.
Monkberry Moon Delight.
So in the Acts of Paul, there is the story of Thecla,
Good album.
right?
Thecla? Is that that's some sort of Dungeons and Dragons monster?
No, it's about a Roman broad named Thecla who hears Paul's
Stranger Things season 5.
She hears Paul's preaching and decides to leave her fiance to follow Paul and become a Christian.
Oh, so roadie.
So her mom dimes her out, and she's sentenced to burn at the stake.
Dang, for leaving her husband?
But her fiance, when they try to burn her at the stake, God sends a big storm and he puts out the flames, right? So I guess she just goes free. I don't know. But fast forward.
God sent the storm and also said, hey, quit it.
So fast forward, at some point she gets arrested after a Roman soldier attempts to rape her. And I guess she fights him off. She gets sentenced to be devoured by wild beasts.
Damn.
Right? But when they sick the beasts on her, all the female beasts, some big lioness in particular, defend her against her male beast attackers. Now, during this whole scrum, she decides to baptize herself by jumping.
I said baptize the lioness.
No, she decides to baptize herself by jumping into a lake full of vicious, man-eating seals.
Ooh,
I shit you not. In the story, she jumps into a lake full of seals to baptize herself, and the seals are going to give her a kiss from the rose.
Seals are going to eat the fuck out of seals. Are scary as shit.
Well, when she jumps into this lake, God sends lightning down just at that moment, kills all the seals, not her. I have some theories on why this one was omitted. She is canonized in the church, by the way. So they, I guess, think that she was pretty cool and all. Let's just not put her story in the Bible.
Yeah, we actually have quite a few saints and martyrs and stuff. That actually sounds like a cool bonus episode or like a Patreon. We could run down some of these crazy martyrs.
So with that, I think that the reason why they left it out is because it flies in the face of the Bible's sort of insistence that women dedicate themselves to their husband and their husband dedicate themselves to God.
Cool. Yeah, no.
I was looking for maybe an expansion on that thought.
Well, traditionally, religion has not been very kind to the fairer sex.
Oh no, not at
I mean,
all.
and I'm not saying always. Obviously, if you go into like pagan religions, you've got matriarchal societies all across the world. You've got
Yeah, big time.
divine feminine
They
energy.
still exist all over the world.
They're everywhere,
Yeah.
right? But like the Middle Eastern religions have been traditionally pretty tough on ladies.
Yeah.
And Christianity is definitely no fucking different.
Well, speaking of which, the last one of these apocryphal texts, well, it's not the last one that exists, obviously. There are a bunch of fucking stories that didn't make the cut, I guess, because, 1,500 years, like we talked about, 1,500 years after the death of Jesus was when the Bible was finalized.
Mhm.
They omitted lots of things that were contemporary to Jesus within a few hundred years.
I mean,
Either way.
finalized even is still kind of
Well, yeah. But that just feels fishy. You know what I mean? Like, we found all these things 1,500 years after this guy died. We found all these things that are contemporary to him within 200-300 years. But we're going to omit that because it doesn't jive with this thing that we've already written, right?
Mm.
So the last one that I'm going to discuss today, and then we are never fucking doing a part 2 of this, has to do.
It's endless. It would never,
really- yeah,
ever,
it really
ever,
is.
ever end.
No.
We didn't even get to the Gutenberg Bible. I'm glad I did a bit about it. The Gutenberg Bible, for those who don't know, was the first
Printing press,
the first press printed massive
the first
totemic document.
massively distributed.
Yeah, obviously
version
they've
of the Bible.
done leaflets and small books and shit like that, but this is the
Right.
only, first like hundreds of pages and all
It
that.
didn't have to be handwritten.
Modern equivalent being like King James.
Yeah, it's like a,
It didn't. It
yeah.
was the first time it didn't have to be handwritten. So
Yeah.
if you had a Bible before Gutenberg, it was written by somebody, and it was like a relic,
Yeah, so
like a family relic.
so if you ever meet Steve Gutenberg, you thank him personally.
So the last apocryphal text we're going to talk about is, well, it has to do with Mary Magdalene, right?
Yeah.
To your point, probably the biblical character with the most mentions in apocryphal texts. She has been omitted the most.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Her relationship has a lot more documentation than the Bible's version of things.
Mhm.
So, what I was talking about, the Borborites, right? They were like this semi-mystic Gnostic Christian sect in like the 3rd, 4th century.
Mm-hmm.
And they were said to have all these sacred texts, including stuff like the Book of Noria, which was Noah's wife. I mentioned before, the Gospel of Eve, the Apocalypse of Adam, the birth of Mary. Lots of fucking wild, interesting stuff. Initially, I know you might say, like, well, okay, sure thing, bud. But they weren't entirely lying because the church managed to get their hands on like some of these in good shape, and then some of them in not so good shape, and some of them were just lost, right? One of them was the Greater Questions of Mary, referring to Mary Magdalene, right? Which seems to have only been partially recovered.
Greater Questions of Mary.
Yeah, it was either partially recovered or was fully recovered and fucking buried. It's not easy to find this shit online, like about this particular book, right? If they were
kind of usually apocryphal texts are the tough ones.
yeah,
Like you ever
if they got this thing in full, they buried it hella fucking deep.
did you ever read the Satanic Verses, Salman Rushdie?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting book.
Yes.
I don't think it's a good book. I think it's a
okay.
it's an important
The
work.
The
but,
Ground
like,
Beneath Her Feet is a better book by him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think that you familiar with the Satanic Verses, Drew?
I haven't read it. I mean, I know
There's, like,
Rushdie.
There's a
It
section
got him banned from a lot of Muslim countries
and
upon pain of
he's-
death.
He is still got like death.
Persona non grata, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's still got vendetta death
I did a paper
warrants.
on him in the with the Ayatollah or whatever
Yeah.
in college.
Yeah, the Ayatollah is the one that put like the death sentence on him
Mhm.
because
Yep.
he released his book on the sections of the Quran that that had been cut out,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Nah, the devil wrote them shits. That's not
Right,
not good."
right.
Yeah.
Well, so like I said, these Greater Questions of Mary, we don't know. It's hard to find this shit. So like I said, if they
The
got
devil wrote it.
if they got the full thing, then they buried it because it gets weird. It gets real weird. Okay. So for starters, the Borborites claim that this book revealed all of the inner secrets and ceremonies of Jesus's inner circle, right? So we assume the apostles and whomever else was like in that
What
little-
kind of would like karaoke?
It apparently involved some fun sex and magic and
Oh,
weird
fuck
stuff.
yeah. Sex magic
blood,
rules.
sugar, sex magic.
It turns out it was John Frusciante
It was
the whole
just- yeah.
time.
It was just fucking When I got you got to get it to your mama. It's just Jesus on the mount, just singing.
How many
that
times
song.
do they mention California in this text?
That was before they
my
got real hard on
God.
California.
Oh, gotcha.
So it was it was Jesus on the mount telling people not to squander their wealth, and he was just like, give it away, give it away, give it away. So
God damn it. I was
that's my
working.
last
I was
joke.
trying to figure out how to do that
It's
one.
my last joke. It's my last joke of the day. I'm done. I'm clocked out. No, so one of these questions in this book of the greater questions of Mary seems to involve her and Jesus hanging out, and Mary is having some doubts about her faith, right? So Jesus takes her up the mountain to pray with her, and this is a direct quote.
Boinks are like crazy.
No, it's crazier. Quote, took from his side a woman. So like the Adam and Eve story, like from his side, he produced a whole ass woman. He said, what? Here's the lady. He began to mingle with her. So he produced a woman from his side and starts banging her. And thus, of course, partaking in his own emission, his ejaculate. After Jesus ejaculates,
snowballing?
After Jesus ejaculates into the woman, he sucks out the semen. Now thoroughly
snowballing.
Freaky.
Listen, after Jesus ejaculates into the woman, he sucks out the semen, now thoroughly admixed with the vaginal fluids, and consumes the concoction. He then turns to Mary and says, we must act thus, so that we might live. And when Mary was disturbed and fell to the ground, he raised her up and said, O person of little faith, why did you doubt? So he creates a woman out of nowhere, bangs her,
His clone, basically.
like
his lady clone.
like cream pies her, sucks it out, swallows it, and looks at her and goes, this is how we got to act if we want to live, lady.
Hey, we're just living.
We got to
We're
fuck.
children of the universe.
We got to fuck. We don't pull out, and then we suck it out and swallow it.
Of his
And
own-
then the part where it's she was so this is where some debate happens. The part where Mary was disturbed and fell to the ground, he raised her up. So some people think she died. She was like, oh God, and died, and he fucking rose her from the dead and said,
I don't know. That seems more like, hey,
Yeah.
it's okay. Come on, get up.
O person of little faith, why did you doubt? And this is the rest of the quote. If I have told you earthly things and ye believe not, how shall ye believe the heavenly things? So I guess if you can't believe I just ate my jizz, how are you going to believe I'm the son of man? How are you going to believe I'm the son of God? You can't even believe I just ate my jizz out of this lady I just produced.
You think this is crazy? You think this is crazy? Let me tell you what we do up there.
Oh my God.
That's if that's what I
This
got to
is-
do to get into heaven.
This
I think
is an
good where I'm at.
old text. This is not something that was just made up. This isn't fucking like internet fanfic, biblical fan fiction. This is something.
God damn, this is like literotica for Jesus. What did I
Which
say? Oh my
definitely
God!
exists.
What did
Definitely
I say?
exists.
What
You're
did I
talking
say?
about Pornhub. Yeah.
I told
Was
you.
that was
I
that
told you
Patreon?
on the
That was
Patreon.
Patreon, yeah.
The next porn that's going to be coming out is
Is
Jesus.
Jesus stuff.
Yep.
I fucking knew it. It's been around this whole time.
So, but this is
There's your
something.
script.
Stephanie Meyer ass Twilight porn tributes.
This is something that was recovered hundreds of years ago, that was just omitted. Somebody wrote this a long
But it
fucking
was
time ago.
omitted because it was icky.
Ugh.
Well, I can
Yeah.
understand why it didn't make it into the Bible. I mean, that's the easiest one for me to understand why it didn't make it.
I think about the person that like took that and like omitted it, and that night going home to his wife and being like, oh maybe.
What did-
Maybe-
What did
maybe
he
that's-
do with Lady Jesus that he fucked and nutted in?
fucking ate her or something. I don't know. Just pushed her off the fucking cliff. I don't know.
Bloop, back in the side, Watto.
Yeah. But this is like it's hard.
As a lady. just
It's
in his
hard
ribs.
doing this kind of research and then going, yeah, I'm gonna believe in this. You know,
I mean, yeah. It's hard to have a respectful conversation sometimes when this stuff is just so silly. It's so fucking silly.
well, but like I said at
Come
the
eating
beginning,
Jesus? I didn't write that.
but like I said at the beginning, this sort of these
Sounds like a country
these
song.
dangerous ideas. Come eating Jesus.
I was
Come
just
eating
thinking of like,
Jesus.
is that an album title or a song
Sounds like
title?
like a Morrissey album.
Ugh. Now it's gross.
Come eating Jesus.
Don't even do it. Don't even. I fucking hate Morrissey.
So, but like I said at the beginning,
third-rate Danzig.
having these, well, Danzig came after Morrissey, so not accurate.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
For sure.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
Misfits were early 80s, late 70s?
Let's have
They were both late 70s.
I'm not Googling to solve
Fucking
this fight.
Googling it, but I also want to stop recording now.
Well, the Smiths were
I don't want to talk about the fucking Smiths. I hate them.
well, that's Morrissey. If we're talking about Danzig, but we're talking about Misfits, then if we're talking about Morrissey, then we got to talk about the Smiths. I think the Smiths were earlier
Hold on a second.
than the Misfits, frankly. I also think Danzig's horrible too.
Yeah, Danzig sucks,
He sucks.
but Morrissey's like so much worse. But
Well,
they both
Morrissey's
do
just
that.
like-
They both do that. I'm Elvis, warble voice bullshit.
Morrissey's just got a little more sugar in the tank.
You know who can get away with that? Josh Homme.
Oh yeah. Josh Homme can do anything he fucking wants. The
You
guy's a
guys say
fucking wizard.
Homme?
His name.
Always called him Josh Homme.
That's what I thought for a long time, but then
Do you
I
know the-
heard him
Oh,
say
really?
his own name.
Oh, okay.
It's
Do you know
Homme.
that the lead singer of...
Ooh, Danzig's got him beat by 2 years.
Nice, okay.
Misfits' first album, 1982. Smith's first album, 1984.
You know who looks like Josh Homme or whatever his name is?
Craig Kilborn.
Yes, kind of. The lead singer of the band Edema. Lead singer and guitarist of Edema. Who actually
I
does
don't
not
know.
suck that bad.
Not familiar.
They kind of came in on like the new metal thing,
Okay, we gotta.
but they're not. They don't sound. They're
I'm
not.
out.
They're not super new. They're not new metally.
I have to go back to work in 3 hours.
That's false.
No, it's not. It's 12:30. I gotta leave the house by 5.
That's 4.5 hours.
Oh no.
Living that Patrick life.
Yeah, I do this almost daily.
Yeah, it sucks.
It does. I complain about it too. So I'm with you. Well, we want to cut it?
Thank you for tuning in to Delete Everything.
You never do
Delete
this right.
Everything is written.
You never do this right.
Delete Everything is written and
Everything. It's everything by Patrick Riley and
recorded
True.
by us.
Guys, if you like that episode, please get on whatever you're listening to. Leave us a review. Reviews are so fucking important, dude.
If you
That
didn't
is
like that
so-
episode, take it up with your Lord.
If you didn't like that episode, you should have tuned out a long time ago, please.
We warned you.
Yeah, please. The reviews mean so much to us. Also, ratings. If you're on Spotify, leave a comment on the episode. Let us know what you think. Even if it's bad, we'll listen. We'll write you back. Even if you look at all the other episodes, we write people back when they comment on our episodes. So do those things. If you are not already following us on Instagram, follow us on Instagram, man. You get to see photos of some of the cool stuff that we have discussed. Every week we drop something. We've dropped some other cool stuff. I said it at the top. We've got some other stuff in the
I'm
pipeline.
gonna put pictures of Jesus on this one.
I say the last thing we discussed, you find a picture of that.
Jesus, cum sucking Jesus.
Sounds like a job for
You don't-
AI art.
You don't even believe in Jesus. Why you got a Jesus penis?
A Jesus, that's it right there on the middle of the table.
Jolly green cock.
Yeah, so that's
No, nothing's
Instagram
sacred. We'll
is
joke
great.
about anything.
Instagram is a good place to see us and see stuff, and we don't just do the episode photos. We do some other cool stuff on there. If that's not enough for you, Patreon. You can join us on Patreon. Delete Everything. Patreon. What is it? Patreon.com/Delete Everything Podcast. That's what it is. And you will get bonus episodes every week. They're like 45 minutes to an hour.
We
every
call
week.
them
Extra
boners
stuff.
episodes.
Boners episodes. You'll get them. We'll suck the cum out of them.
Fuck, what?
If you sign up for our
hey,
Patreon, we're gonna suck the.
I'm not doing that part of this job.
Suck the cum right out of here.
Patreon.com/Delete Everything Podcast. You buy them, we suck the cum out of them. Come on down. Join us.
On State Road 11 across from the Walmart.
Okay, anyway, that's going to
Is
be
that
it for
it?
us.
Are we done?
Yeah, we're done for
Thank
this
God.
week. God damn. All right, bye.
Bye.
We the best podcast.
The Holy Bible is a collection of religious texts, scriptures, and other writings that are held to be sacred in Christianity and are based off of some certain texts from Judaism, Samaritanism, Islam, and the Baha'i faith, other Abrahamic religions from the Middle Eastern region. The Bible is an anthology or a compilation of a variety of texts originally written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. It could also be considered what's called a palimpsest, which is a historical document that's been rewritten to alter the narrative over time. These texts include instructions, stories, poetry, prophecies, and other genres of storytelling. The collection of materials accepted as part of the Bible by a particular religious tradition or community is called canonical or biblical canon. Believers generally consider it to be a product of divine inspiration, usually from a singular entity known as a god, by various other names, depending on where you're coming from. Judaism refers to the first half of the Bible as the Torah, which is a collection of Abrahamic texts. Parts of that are also used in the Quran, in Islam. And then the second half of the Bible, which is known as the New Testament, usually applies specifically to Christianity, and kind of omits other religions in that area. Over time, as the Bible has been used by varying faiths, organizations, even political structures, it has been altered, and the course of its intent has been guided by often political gain, financial gain, or just cruelty or greed in a lot of respect. You know, honestly, I've been studying this all week. I don't care. Can we just... Drew, how about we scratch all that and we just talk over each other and ramble about shit for like 2 hours and then say Jesus eats cum?
Quit poking me with that thing! I deserve this! No!